Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope everyone is doing well. And yeah, we on this show we discuss current events and what has been going on. Today we are discussing the whole trans debate. It's pretty much here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. There's been discussions everywhere about this, and I have my two panelists back for the show. Given and Meryl, thank you so much for joining me once again. How are you guys doing? Have you heard of have you seen this entire trans discourse lately? Hello, uh,
Yeah.
can you guys
Yeah,
hear
Hi.
me?
hello.
I was just thinking, let Given go first because his answer is
Oh.
probably going to be shorter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Given how inundated are you in regards to the happenings within these debates? Because there has been so many updates. We're gonna get into one of them, but what have
Mm,
you seen
mm.
from your end?
Yes, that's my answer. Yes, as she said,
That is indeed very short.
it was gonna be short, so we'll just keep it short and sweet. And yes, yes, I agree with the premise, and yes, I there has been discussion, and yes,
No one. By the way, you do know that you're in the comfort of your living room, right? Like no one actually has a gun to your head. Like you can't.
yes, yes,
Yo, what are you reading from a teleprompter? If you don't read like this, you're gonna get shot.
yes. I have been doing research about this topic. No, I'm joking. No, no. I think there's been a lot of discourse, as there should be. You know what I mean? We're all humans, so we need to discuss things going on in the human diaspora, as they say. But yeah, we need to just discuss and come to. I don't know if we need to come to consensus, but I think we just need to know how other people are feeling and what is on their mind and what the science is pointing to, and yeah, have a look and delve deep. I have a personal view, as probably you guys have your own personal view. You can obviously take the data into consideration to determine your position on the subject. But just as an introductory note, I think it's important to discuss these topics, and it's important to obviously listen to all sides discussing it, so you get a more well-rounded view of the situation. But
Uh,
yeah,
that's a fair response. I couldn't agree more because end of the day, I think that we are literally here to exist with one another. Obviously, like I think that there has to be a way that one way or the other that we can try and relate without having to. How do I say it? Like sink into minimizing or because that's why I called this specific episode as it's not hyperbole. At least this debate is not hyperbolic or hyperbole. But I've seen, and the reason is for that is because I've seen a lot of that going on to basically try and I think where like there is a real discussion to be had, especially in light of what has happened in the UK. We're gonna get into that in regards to them, the health secretary. I hope I got that right. Victoria, damn it, don't just forgot her name.
Atkins.
Thank you so much, Victoria
You're welcome.
Atkins. Had basically. Let me just quickly go to it so that you guys can see. Uh, she basically said uh, it was to strengthen the privacy and the and of the service users of the NHS. So if you are going into the if you're going into the hospital, this is in the UK obviously. If you're going into the hospital and then you want access to someone that is of your same sex, you get it under what uh, uh, Victoria has decided to do, which she basically said. She basically said here we want to make it abundantly clear that a patient, if they want the same sex care, they should have access to it wherever reasonable. We have always been clear that sex matters and our services should respect that. By putting this in the NHS constitution, we are highlighting the importance of balancing the rights and needs of all patients to make the healthcare system that is faster and simpler and fairer for all. So when when I read that, the immediate, this is the UK obviously. So before we go into this, I want to ask you, because you're from Meryl, you're from the Netherlands, and
Correct.
and Given is from Ireland. I know Ireland is not part of the jurisdiction. Wait. Before I go forward, is it the Northern Ireland or just Ireland?
Northern Ireland.
Oh, you're from. Okay, so you're.
Oh, so that is the UK.
Yeah, that
It
is
is the
part of
UK.
the jurisdiction. Okay, so this would apply to you guys as well. So, I'm glad we got that distinction out of the way. So, Meryl, how are matters like this? Because I don't know what it's like in the Netherlands or other part of Europe. So I would actually like to know how this plays out in the Netherlands. So if you were to get a certain, like, how is this handled in the Netherlands?
Honestly, I have not seen any debate like this with regards to health services, like with the whole trans debate coming into it. It's been very quiet. That doesn't mean there haven't been any developments, just that none have actually risen to the level of me becoming aware of them through osmosis, I'd say. It's just not as hotly debated here as it is in the US and the UK. There's loads of reasons behind that, and most of it's just humans are humaning. Um,
That's a fair
and
point.
well, yeah, I mean, culture is in a sense kind of like a internal resonance that if there's a debate within a particular space, it kind of intensifies in that space. And it doesn't mean that in another space that's completely unrelated, suddenly the same discourse is going to prop up. It's kind of like an exothermic reaction in that sense. Because with every change along a political spectrum or whatever, especially if it's a loud change or a very visible change, then there's going to be a reactionary movement, and then the other side's going to be more heavily reacting to that, and you get this kind of runoff effect. While if the initial change isn't met with much resistance at all, it also tends to just simmer and fizzle out.
Right.
So yeah, this has not been an issue of this magnitude at all in the Netherlands, and so much that I'm not even aware if there have been any developments in this area.
That's kind of interesting because, it's interesting.
I can
I'm
go
in the U.
look.
No, it's not. It's interesting in the sense that I've always pictured the Netherlands to be very relaxed and very liberal in a lot of these things.
Yeah, we are. That's true.
Right, like, but that's only because of Amsterdam. And I know it's a very kind of foreign way of thinking of, or a foreigner. Oh, it's just this one hub of Amsterdam. But I thought, like, when you go into different areas of the Netherlands, there might be dissenting voices. So that, but for the whole country, you, with as much because you have been speaking vocally about this, the joining in with debates.
Just a bit.
So
Just a bit.
yeah,
It's only taken up the majority of my life for the past 2
yeah,
years or something.
she has a YouTube channel that literally that she dissects and goes into it. But that's what I'm trying to say. I would have thought that if something was happening in the Netherlands, that would have been your first point, because that's home. You kind of get the whole view.
Yeah, I'm kind of a country trader in that sense, because most of what I engage with on the internet is based on US and UK happenings, mostly because, first of all, it's just not as big as of a debate here, and second of all, the things that happen in the US and the UK can like drift over here, and
Right.
have been in the past, because we're such a tiny country, and the UK and US are just way bigger players on the cultural theater, so to speak. So if I can aid in resisting harmful change there, downstream, that prevents it from, like, not that I can prevent it all by my onesies, but I can be part of the movement that helps prevent harmful change or
Right.
resist harmful stagnance, because sometimes change is good, sometimes change is needed, and sometimes change is harmful and it's problematic. But that's what I focus more on, mostly because also a lot of the research that I read on the subject, much of the sources that I engage with are based in the UK and or the US, mostly US. So it's
Mm.
just that's just the space that I'm in, and it doesn't make sense to be in a on a US YouTube channel engaging with people talking about the US state of trans rights and then talking about the Dutch trans rights. Like, that's not the conversation at that point. So also it's just what, so one part is that I'm just not as attuned to what's happening in the Netherlands, but also I think there would have been more coming to mind if there was more happening. So it's partially maybe I just missed it because I'm more focused on the US and the UK. Maybe it's I'm just maybe there just isn't that much to talk about.
I mean, like, the reason why I like, without with the reason why I thought it would be interesting is because of it would be interesting to hear of the, like, if your country is really saying, why is everyone shouting about something like this that is pretty much foregone or something like that. You know what I mean? It's
Well,
always
that
interesting
that is
to
a bit of the sentiment in a lot of places, that people are just like,
what. Yeah,
why
yeah. The
why are
last.
people in the US arguing about if homosexual people are valid when we were the first country in the world to
Yeah,
legalize
to
gay
legalize
marriage?
it.
Like, we're just like, get into the present, please, you know?
Yeah, like the last place I heard having a massive issue was Australia, and that was in regards to, I forgot the name of the activists, but it was in regards to what was happening. She was basically saying that, you are erasing women's voices. I wish I wish I remember the name, but she was assaulted. She was assaulted, like, when she was doing that in Australia. But it's of no.
Oh, do
It's of
you do you mean Posey Parker?
Yes, yes, I think so. Yes, yes, that's
Oh,
the
don't get
name.
me
Yeah,
started on her.
yeah. So, when I saw
That's
things,
such a rabbit hole.
I mean, to be quite fair, it's not one I'm going to explore too deeply, because when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is descending into something, and that's when I would say I kind of take a bit of an interest again, because I wanted to know exactly what it was, and they were saying gender identity, sex, etc. So this is one of those times that I feel like I have to go back, because we have covered this topic before, actually, but it was area in the area of sports and uh,
Yeah, we were
uh,
talking about Hogwarts Legacy as well, I think, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
onto the whole J.K. Rowling debacle,
right. August
which
Legacy.
hasn't
That
gotten better since then. Like,
I
we
mean,
we've somehow moved into Holocaust denial. Like, it's wild.
I don't know. She's always moving. But yes, we have discussed this under, like,
She is that.
what is it? Ethical. I forgot the word for it. Ethical consumption. So we have discussed this topic, but I don't think we've. The last time we kind of did touch on it in regards to the whole sports thing, in regards to if you were to identify like a non-binary, etc. All those things. What does it mean? What's the ripple effect, etc. Given, unfortunately, it wasn't there for that, but we had Steve on, but we were speaking in regards to that more of how they would relate, like, the attraction, right? As well as sports. But we never really got into the fine details of what it is that people are talking about, right? And so because it's not helpful, in my opinion, if you if you want to argue sex, for example, and this is kind of a very good story to go on, because she is she, being Victoria Atkins, is making changes that would affirm sex is biology for uh, single sex wards. So if I was to understand uh, the proposal, sorry about that. That's my phone. If I was to understand the proposal, what I'm kind of and I'm guessing here is basically if you want to have if you want to be with in a ward with women, they have to be biological sex women. That's what I'm understanding. So you can choose that
The
access,
term is cis women.
right? But I completely understand that. But I'm using the
Yeah,
words from the
it's just shorter. It saves you a couple of syllables.
understood. But I'm just using the words from the
Continue.
article. But what I'm trying to basically what I'm trying to basically is convey is what do how would that impact trans individuals, and what does that mean for, like, what does that, scratch all of that, gender identity, what actually is it, and how is it different from sex?
Right. Um, so the long and short of it, like in really short, kind of unnuanced terms, just to have like a quick baseline from which we can then delve into further nuance. I suddenly became really American.
She's from the
But
south. She's from the
basically,
south. Red.
this is so
I'm
from
joking.
here
I'm
on
joking.
out, we're going to talk in a Southern accent, apparently, because that's what we move it into. No, but the thing is that this is also why I think that the whole idea that this is some kind of that the NHS decision is somehow a landmark thing for deciding that sex is biological is just really, really weird because nobody argued that sex isn't biological. So the whole thing is like kind of weird because in short terms, right? You have sex, which refers to your physiological, anatomical, biological, whatever about your person. Then we have gender identity, which is a psychological slash neurological state that is often described as a deeply felt sense of one's own gender, in which gender is this massive umbrella term that is about the social factors and like your own personal self-conception and how that all interacts, and it's like this whole weird mishmash that they've been talking about for decades already. And then we have gender expression, which refers to how you present yourself. And none of those three, or four, if you include like the umbrella gender, none of those have to at all align with each other. So, for example, if you look at butch biker chicks, they are, if we assume they're cis women, they are female. They identify as women, but they have a masculine gender expression. That doesn't
Right.
make them a man. The only thing that makes them a man would be identifying as such, i.e., under the presumption that they're being honest about it, of course. But, you know, the whole but people can lie thing is true for everything. That includes, like, if you go to a therapist for depression, like, if we're talking about self-reporting for depression, we're also talking about its validity, presuming that people are honestly giving their experiences. Um, but all those three things can be whatever permutation of things you want them to be. And I am personally super particular with my language precisely to keep things clear. So a quick rundown on that is just I use the terms male and female when we're talking about sex. I use the terms man and woman when we're talking about gender identity. And I use the terms masculine and feminine when we're talking about gender expression. So that makes things a lot easier because if you use the terms man and woman for gender identity and sex, then whenever someone is talking about women, you have to ask, like, do you mean females or do you mean people with a gender identity woman? And it just gets confusing. So that's why I keep those separate. And then if we're talking about someone whose gender identity and is the one most commonly associated with their sex, i.e., a female who also identifies as a woman or a male who identifies as a man, that's what we call cisgender. And if those two are not in alignment, then that's what we call transgender. So that's just the post-it note version of what those terms mean. Any questions? I'm
We
sorry.
did touch on this. We did actually touch on this very briefly on the last episode. I mean, albeit it was a kind of a
Kind of an
tangent.
afterthought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of tangential, but we did touch on it in regards to how people want to be regarded, which we will kind of revisit because it does really matter in regards to the what you basically mentioned, which was the expression part, because I do think that there's a lot of layers into that. And the reason why, again, like I said, the reason why I decided to do I really want to talk about this is because I do think we do have to be very particular with our words, and I do agree with not agree. I do, what's the word I'm looking for? Damn it. Put it this way, I encourage is probably the wrong word to even use as well, but I applaud I applaud that you do really want to specify, because that is something that I equally would do as well. And also, what I will also do if I'm watching this is to also hit that like button, because it would really help us with the algorithm. So yeah, hit that like button, folks. Hit that like button. Is what
Yeah, as
Meryl
I've
would
heard
have
it
wanted.
described earlier before, like consensually slap that like button on its round, plumpy ass.
Right. It's what Meryl, it's what Given would want. It's what Given would want. And yeah, so go in regards to what Meryl was just basically saying right now, Given, in regards to the whole sex and gender identity, I want to pick your brain a little bit in regards to this subject. When someone says gender, right? I am a male, I am a female, etc. What and you just met them on the street, but they don't look like a male or a female. They've got a beard, but their hair is like
We're
it's like
already
Meryl's
confusing
hair, for example.
terms.
It's like Meryl's hair, for example. You know, how would you react to that? Like,
So wait, if a man or a woman is presenting opposite,
yeah, but they
I'm
tell you that.
confused by the question.
So see, here's the reason why I specified those terms, because just now, Caleb, you were talking male and female regarding to gender identity, and then Given is now using man and woman to refer to sex, and I'm already confused.
To be quite fair,
I'm trying to get the understanding of the basis first.
Right,
Like,
right.
Is it
To be
is
quite
it
fair,
an actual?
I did present to him in a gendered way. I did say a man walk up to you, and then you're looking at him, and he appears like a man. He like this and that, but they tell you, but they got the hair of a woman. They, how would that deal with you? But what did you want me to clarify? Sorry. Hello.
Well, I just specifically
Given, can you hear me?
only
Sorry.
use like
I can hear you.
male,
So
female.
if they told me
Then
what they want me to refer to them as, I'll just use their name. I'll just say, what's your name? I'll use their name. If I think there's something that they
fair.
claim to be and they're not, and I don't accept that, because I'm not gonna go along with what someone's telling me if I'm not subscribed to that thought. So I'm just gonna call you by your name. That's it.
But how do you know they're not?
I don't know. That's why I'm calling them by their name. I just call you by your name. It's much simpler.
Yeah, but you were like, if it's something I don't subscribe to, like, how do you know they're not? If someone who looks like me walks up to you and tells you I'm a man,
Mm-hmm.
how would you know whether I am or not?
I'll just say cool, whatever. I'll say cool, Meryl.
That's not an answer to the question.
I wouldn't know, but I would assume from what I'm looking at, as most people do.
Right, but then you're making the error of assuming that gender identity is something you can see, which is not the case.
Well, obviously, you can't see gender identity.
The only things that you can see are, to some extent, their sex or their gender expression.
I think we understand this, but at the same time, whatever they're expressing is how people are going to take it in mass. So for me, I used to operate. People judge books by their cover. That's what people do. That's an essential evolutionary trait that people have used to survive for the longest time. That's what we do. We judge the book by its cover. So if you tell me what you are and you're not presenting how I expect what I'm looking at to be presenting, I will just refer to you as your name. That's it. It sorts out every issue. It skips every problem. No one's offended. What's your name? My name is da-da-da. Okay, da-da-da. In every situation, I just refer to you by your name. Sorted.
Ooh, Meryl, you do have an opening here for that book by its cover thing because I want to now go back to what you said in regards to expression. Now, I want what I want to. I was thinking in my head when you mentioned expression earlier. Um, what do you mean by gender expression? Is it how they're expressing themselves outwardly, like how they dress, or what's going
So
on
that
in
their
their
gender
head?
identity could be different from their gender expression. So they can
That is
express a
correct.
gender that is different from what they actually identify to be, internally. So
What was with the quotation marks?
it's not that deep. Just move on. We're trying to catch everything out here. What the hell? Bro, it's not that deep. Let's move forward.
Okay, keep dodging then. But anyway, gender expression, I mean, it's in the term express. So gender expression is like everything that you can do basically to communicate to the outside world whatever you want to communicate with regards to gender. So it could be, for example, the way you walk or the way you talk or the way you dress or how you wear your hair, or even like your name could be a part of your gender expression. For example, uh, John would be a pretty masculine name that people would usually think belongs to a man, but it doesn't have to be. It would be uncommon for someone who identifies as a woman to have that name, but it's possible and they're within their rights to do that.
I mean,
But that's
you do
also a
have
method
Murphy.
that's the whole point. That is also part of what we communicate to the outside world. And if I go back to the example of, for example, the butch biker chicks, they are presenting more masculine than, for example, a woman in frilly dresses and skirts with pink bows everywhere. So that would be a more feminine gender expression. But both of them are equally a woman if they identify as such.
Well, I mean, you do have. I'm not sure if you've seen Interstellar, but you do have a character that's
I
called
have, but a
Murphy.
long time ago.
Amazing movie.
Yeah, and that character was amazing. So when you, that's a good point that you made in regards to the outwards expression because that's what I see it as. That the outward expression is what's going on, but then you have the concept of not a concept. Is it reality now? I don't know how tried and tested the concept of gender dysphoria is, and
Very.
yeah, so that's why I was.
Extremely so.
Oh, hold on, hold on. That's why I was kind of like trying to hold myself back because it's like me saying the concept of PTSD. You know what I mean? It's not really gonna fly. You know what I'm trying to
Well,
say? I don't want
it's
to
a concept, but it's a concept that's been
try
proven
and
to
test it.
be
Oh,
real.
okay. Yeah. So I don't. What I was basically trying to say is that what when it comes to gender dysphoria, right? At least what I understand from it is that there is an hormone imbalance somewhere that is basically uh, how do I
That's.
no I just
I
literally
mean,
forgot what I
I
was
can save you the trouble of thinking about it because that's not actually true.
okay.
Like the thing that a lot of people don't understand that is really frustrating at times when you're trying to explain it to people, and they just, I mean, some people apparently don't want to understand, but people think that gender dysphoria and being transgender are the same thing. They're not.
Oh no,
Gender dysphoria is a, no, I know that you weren't saying that, but I'm just like, just giving a, again, a post-it note, a description of the thing,
right
because
okay
gender dysphoria only relates to a clinically significant level of distress. That's how it's defined in the DSM-5. A clinically significant level of distress due to gender incongruence. And gender incongruence is synonymous with being trans, i.e., that your gender identity does not align with what we most commonly would associate with that sex. And it's a fair association because about 98% of people are cisgender, meaning that 98% of females are women and 98% of men are male. So it's a fair association. It's not like a stereotype if it's 98% anymore. So that's why I add the caveat that it's just like what we most commonly associate with, because it's also not a pathology when that's not the case. It's just that gender dysphoria is the clinically significant level of distress because of that incongruence. It's not the incongruence itself. The incongruence itself has a lot of factors underneath it. There are some thoughts that hormones might be involved in it, but that has not been clinically tested
So we
to the
don't know
level of being
definitively.
true.
We don't know the
There's
truth.
also neurological differences. There's an area in the brain, the bed nucleus of the terminal striata or something, that in trans people actually more closely resembles a brain of the opposite sex than their own. There's also like there could be sociocultural influences. There could be a lot of stuff, but what we do know is that it's not something that you can change about yourself. Your gender identity is just what it is. Otherwise, there's been so many attempts at conversion therapy. At least one of them would have worked. None of them have. So
It's
if you could change it, it's kind of like homosexuality. You can change it. Otherwise, conversion therapy will work, and it doesn't.
well,
Um,
well.
so
In that
yeah,
case,
continue.
like, I'm not. This is not a.
It's interesting. I
This
don't
is
know.
not a curveball. I will get to you
Interesting.
literally in a bit. Given, but I just want to put this to a while. This thought is out there. This is not a challenge or anything, but if it's not something that you can change, what about people that detransition? What about people that detrans? Like, what does that
Then they
entail?
were never. Then they were never that. They were just
That's actually, I can pull
quote
up the
unquote.
numbers really quickly because I have them somewhere here. There we go. Because
Um,
the first of all, the number of people who detransition is super tiny. Like
yeah, but
the regret rate of transition is what.
Meryl, before we go into that, we kind of gotta appreciate that even if it's just one person, that one person does kind of need to be scrutinized with the thought of
I
you
never
can't control
suggested
this.
otherwise.
Okay.
But the thing is that the fact that it's such a tiny amount supports the validity of transgender people's identities, because it would be, if it had been just some kind of whim or whatever, it would have been leading to this much satisfaction and this for this long lasting as well. Then it would just be, people would be happy for a year and then they'd be like, oh, this sucks, and then we'd see, like, I don't know, maybe 30, 40, 50% detransition. We don't. It's actually closer to, last stats I saw were between 2 and 5%. But of those 2 to 5% that detransition,
That's still a big
only,
number in the trans community, though. So, but sorry, continue.
it is a lower regret rate than laser eye surgery, hip
I'm not talking about
replacements, knee
regret.
replacements, and all those things.
I'm not talking about wait. When you say regret rate, like, uh,
Yeah, the regret rate is
wait.
shorthand for detransitioning.
Oh, okay. That's
Like
what I
they
wanted.
regret it, so they transition
Right.
back.
Continue.
Yeah, but of those, I have here a survey with 27,000 respondents. For the people who gave reasons for their detransition, only 5% said that gender transition was not right for them. Overwhelmingly, the reasons for detransitioning given were pressure from parents at 36%. I mean, they could give multiple reasons, so it's kind of weird. But 30% of those surveyed said that pressure from parents was a reason. 33% said the difficulty of transition, which relates to why it's important to have good gender affirming care so that they don't just stop because they can't afford it anymore, or because they can't get a clinic anymore because they're shutting down clinics for whatever reason. There was 31% for harassment and discrimination, 29% employment issues, 26% family pressure, 18% relationship pressure, 17% peer pressure. Then there's also pressure from mental health professional, religious counselors, and then there's 5% that said gender transition was not right for them.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is that, and I can appreciate the larger figures. In fact, you can even definitely argue that there is a bit of shame attached to maybe the parents coming in, maybe the psychologist as well. That's a lot of shame that could throw anyone out of whack. But what I'm trying to get into is basically, if it's something you can't control, then technically, if you choose to like, you choose out of your own volition, like, to detransition, is this basically saying, I don't want to be a woman anymore, I don't want to be a man, therefore it's a choice? Or is it saying,
No.
hold on, or is this something that it's, I transition as in terms of surgery to be a woman, for example, right? Or a man. Let me say man. I transition to be a man. This is not what I want, so I detransition. Because if
Right.
that's yeah, so
Mm,
because if that's
Yeah.
the case, we gotta talk about the people that just don't transition surgically as well.
Right. So that's actually not the case because the point is, and this is really hard for a lot of people to grok, but the point is that the fact that those people detransition for those reasons, while not giving the reason that gender transition wasn't right for them, means that the pressure and shame and the transphobia and the discrimination and the hate that gets thrown at you is worse than not living your authentic self. These people are generally like the people who detransition not because they turned out not to be trans, because those people exist and we should give them just as much support and aid as we give everyone else. But the majority of the people who detransition for other reasons than turning out not to be trans are deeply unhappy and wish they could retransition the second they get the chance. So that's why it's so massively important to combat all this discrimination and bigotry that's out there, because then nobody would have to regret it, because they wouldn't be shamed or fired or pressured or sent to conversion camp or whatever. It's like people just go back into the closet. That's what it is for a majority of these people.
Given, you seem like you have something to say. I will hit that point again, but I
No,
want to hear from Given. What do you mean?
no, I've got nothing to say.
You no response whatsoever. I saw a visible outlook.
No, I was just
Okay,
thinking about it. I was thinking about
okay,
it in my head. Like,
so so to go back to what you were saying, Meryl, because again, I understand what you're trying to say, right? But you did also say that those people that did the transition and they also need support because they weren't, you know, what I'm trying to say is they what you said in regards to you can't change this, like it shows that you don't have it, like they shouldn't be a choice to detransition absent of no one pressured me, I just chose to do it from themselves, like absence
Why
of
not?
pressure.
People can make mistakes. It happens.
Make mistakes, what do you mean? No, no, we're not talking about surgical, like we don't know about surgical or anything like that, but what do you mean by make mistakes, like
Well, because it's not like there's lots of people that doubt their sexuality and then think they might be gay, and then they sleep with a bunch of people of the same sex and they're like, you know what? I actually don't like this, and then they stop identifying as gay. Like it's not that much different. Like it can be difficult, and it's especially difficult to envision what it's going to be like to live as that after all the transition. And also, I should say that these statistics are not solely for surgery. This can also be just social transition, which is just changing your gender expression and taking a different name and pronouns.
right,
quick
okay, so
question.
in that case, go on.
No, I was just gonna ask about what you think about the studies of when they look at kids who suffer from gender dysphoria and how.
Oh, don't bring up the
Uh,
80% thing.
no, I'm just wondering what you think about that.
Right. So
What?
I'm pretty sure I know what you mean, because there is this weird myth floating around on the internet that if there's no gender affirming care given to kids who present with gender dysphoria, which is not actually what the study said, that 80% of them will stop identifying as trans, which is also not what the study said, because the study specifically was talking about just kids being gender non-conforming,
Mm-hmm.
which is not even about their identity. Gender nonconforming just means, like, for example, the butch biker chicks are also gender nonconforming because a masculine gender expression doesn't conform to the gender identity of woman. Like, it's also not what we commonly associate. So those studies just simply do not show what people say that they show. It
Mm-hmm.
is simply not a fact that the majority of kids without gender affirming care will just be cis again. It's just not true.
No, it's not about
There's
being cis.
no substantiation
It's
for
about
that.
it's about them not going through with an actual full-on transition. Like,
Just any gender affirming care. It's just not a fact. What it does do to not give them gender affirming care is it increases the rates of suicide and shit. And you don't want that either. And mostly for kids who are like under 15, 16 years of age, the only real interventions, there's a massive fly in my house. Go fly elsewhere. Um,
I would have gone to
but the
grave with
only
that.
the only real interventions for kids under like 15, 16 years of age is just social transition, which is completely reversible, and puberty blockers, which are also completely reversible and have been used for kids with precocious puberty since the 80s. And it does not show to have a different effect on trans kids at all. Like it just pauses puberty to prevent permanent irreversible changes from occurring until they're a bit older and they have a better grasp on their identity.
Right,
we don't have really long-term studies to really see how this really affects people.
That is completely false.
I said in the long-term view, like we might have like a couple.
How long do you want to study this? We have people who've been taking these meds since the 80s.
Okay, okay,
Fair
but
enough.
No, seriously, but this is another myth that's been going around. Like, there's no long-term studies. Bullshit. It's just not the case. We have studies, and also we have the same level of medical evidence for gender-affirming care for minors, which again can just be social transition, etc., as for any other medical intervention we have.
we will definitely get into this, like, because we are gonna get into the myth for a bit, but I really do want to clarify. I really do want clarification on what you literally said about the choice thing, because you did say you have no choice when. I believe you said when there's something in your brain that's present or something. Could you like remind me regarding that?
Yeah, it's that it's basically the same. Well, not the same mechanism, obviously, because it's somewhere completely different in the brain, but it is similar in how it manifests as sexual orientation, that it might like maybe drift a little bit over the course of your life, like maybe someone who is bi becomes a little bit more gay or a little bit more straight over time or whatever. But it's not like people are straight one day and then gay the next day and then straight another day. That's not really how it works. And gender identity is much the same in that it's just, it might like drift a little bit, but it's not like you can just pick and choose.
Right. And what I'm trying to say is, since this actually exists in your head, and you said it proves that you cannot actually choose. What I'm trying to say is,
it's like homosexually and such. That's also
right
in your head.
Right. So I'm I'm literally trying to find out, why are people choosing to detransition then?
I just explained why.
No. I know I'm talking about the ones that are doing
social pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
it's better
to give it for listening.
No, I knew I did qualify that, but what I was trying.
I don't get the question.
Okay, but what I qualified was they were doing it on their own volition. Like there was no pressures or anything like that. They're like I literally don't want to do this, and like they literally went through it and were like,
there's
no.
pressure. I think what needs to be realized is that in these situations there's probably pressure both ways.
Don't say it.
No, there's probably pressure both ways. It's honestly
no.
This is just being true. There's probably pressure both ways.
It's just not the case.
It's not the case. What do you mean? There's always pressure both ways.
There is no significant number of people forcing others to transition.
Wait, what are parents? You don't think parents are
like social pressure?
I have never seen a legitimate case or a legitimate like collation of people who have been forced to be trans by their parents. It's the opposite 90%, like the majority of the time.
Okay.
I know, but I'm saying if you're born in a household where your parent.
How many people are forced to be gay by their parents?
Okay.
It's not being forced to be gay. It's just being steered into a direction.
Okay, how many parents steer their kids towards being gay?
I mean, like.
Do you not hear what I was saying? I was saying if you're born. I was about to set the premise, but you didn't let me land with that. I was just gonna say that if your parents are involved in the LGBT community and they're very involved in that, they're gonna, if they see signs or anything that they may deem a sign, they're more likely to try and say, explore that. Explore that. Is all I'm saying.
And exploring is the same as pressure.
It is.
Well, it's a pressure that you might not have gotten if your parents just didn't push you into doing anything.
No, because exploring doesn't tell you to go either way. It's just like, hey, you don't have to be any which way. Just go figure out what you want to be.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we can at least give the benefit of the doubt and be like.
I'd also like to add that especially trans people know that it is not something that you can choose or force on anyone. So they would be the last people to try to force someone to be something they're not.
I really wish, because there
But
is
with
there is a TikTok, there is a legitimate TikTok
videos.
that I
Okay,
saw.
there's
There was a
videos.
legitimate TikTok that I saw where the mother was picking up a. This boy said the boy was saying, oh, like he basically was acting girly, right? And the mom was like, "You're a girl, right?" And the baby literally said, "No, I'm not. I just like playing with this." But this was a TikTok that obviously I can't pull up now because I don't know it. But it's something that I saw ages ago, and so I mean, like that's. But I only brought that in to basically say maybe like there are some nice understanding parents like you have had, where they will say, yeah, maybe you should explore it, like maybe if you want to explore this kind of thing, that's all well and good. But at the same token, there are some parents out there that do actually want to, that they envision their child to be in the wrong body because they have seen a sign that they could be in a wrong body. I mean,
You realize that those kids who, when told by their parents, "You're a girl, right?" and they're saying, "No, I'm not," you realize that those kids are not going to get medicine from the doctors because they just wouldn't qualify.
yeah, but oh, by the way, just to caveat, because you did bring up a good point, I don't know whether these kids actually went through transition, but I'm just using it as an example of the pressure that they might receive. They might be like, oh, maybe I am this way or that way. Do you understand where I'm coming from now? Because I actually don't know if they actually gone through transition.
I
I'm
mean,
just
we're
giving you an
still blowing
example.
it up to way larger proportions than it actually is because there is already this whole narrative that people are trying to trans the kids and everything, and it's just so harmful to like the people who are actually trans, who need that care, who now can't get that care because people are so afraid of their kids being trans that gender affirming care is being banned left, right, and center. So
But
I
banned where? They are allowed in some states.
they
Okay, okay,
what
hold on. This is a
what did you
this.
say?
I don't know if you
They
have
are
this
allowed
video.
in some states. Where are they banned?
Let
I mean,
me.
they
I'm
are
gonna link
allowed.
this video in the comments.
In
Hold
some
up.
states. You don't think that in
Yeah.
some states means not all states?
Yeah, but I mean, it took a while before like certain things was a total, overhaul. But you got
Well,
to
actually,
appreciate.
they are introducing like actual bans left, right, and center, and increasing the difficulty of getting that care, and trying to raise the minimum age of that care, and
I
trying to
completely,
prevent puberty blockers from handing out. It's wild, and that's why I said most of my engagement is with how it's going in the U.S. mostly because it's
I
a
com,
giant hotbed.
I
I
completely
can really
understand.
recommend Erin in the Morning. She's an investigative journalist that follows, especially the legal side of these
I com,
bills a lot. There's
I
also
com,
a website that tracks them, I think.
I completely understand where you're coming from. What I'm trying to say is that the same way that your country was the first one to legalize gay marriage, and it took like 13 years before it could be legalized elsewhere in the world, it's not gonna happen
Sorry.
overnight with the whole trans thing. I mean, this is the first time that we're kind of
No.
actually.
They're reverting in the US.
It never was a
It is
thing.
getting banned where it was previously allowed. That's the problem.
Maybe they're realizing that, it's just not the way to go as of now until we get more data.
As opposed to literally all of the science. Like the American Medical Association, American Psychiatric Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, all of these, there's a statement from all of these associations that are like, we bitterly regret the amount of bans that have been going through because it does not comport with the science on the subject. The
But why?
actual medical associations
Why?
do
Why?
not agree with the bans
But why are the bans going ahead?
because political culture war stuff, and especially in the US, it's a lot of Christian nationalism.
Because of the majority don't want the things to move forward, no?
No, it's because the people who have the power to push bills don't want it. It's because the people who are actually doing the science are not in Congress. They're in the science.
Right. We will get back to this. I just want to read the chat real quick. Nom de plume, thank you so much for your chat and welcome back to the stream. She says, I am a cis female and years ago rode a big motorbike, often misgendered until I took off my skid lid. Wasn't offended by it, didn't get defensive about it, just a genuine mistake. Are there and
I think I
Are
think it's
there
just it.
let me just read this last part out.
Well,
Are there any statistics for the number of people who this transition then go on to re-transition?
Those numbers are out there. I'd have to look them up because I don't have them open right now. But it's a significant amount of people
Well,
who later retransition.
I
well,
think
look
this
them up.
is
Look them up while you do that. Given, go on. Oop,
no. I
go on,
think
given.
this is just important to like. It's like for me, I want obviously the freedom of choice is paramount for people to choose what they want to do and have the autonomy to do what they want to do.
Exactly, which is why the bans are bullshit because it's literally taking away the choice of people to do what they want to do.
Or raise some money, go to another country that allows it to happen, and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
Or
because
do a
that's available.
GoFundMe, do a GoFundMe, make a campaign. You can put in the effort. You can probably
Or
get the
maybe
result.
just not like make it a culture war thing and just give good healthcare
And
access for everyone.
listen. It's I know we want that. We really want that, but the whole world is a melting pot of different ideologies, and in different countries, different ideologies supersede others. So the best option is to try and get yourself to a place where your ideology is respected,
The best
and you go
option is to
there.
keep advocating for those people who have a
Yeah,
harmful and not medicine-based ideology to
you can
shut
do that.
up.
You can keep you can keep doing that. I'm gonna shut up, but you can keep doing that. But again, the easiest solution is to get your family, work hard, get your family in a position where you can move them to a place where your
Yeah, because that's available
ideologies
for everyone.
I
it's not
mean,
available for
like,
everyone, but you have to play with the cards you're dealt. You know what I mean? Like you have to do the most with what you can. Like
Yeah, or maybe we
yeah,
advocate
maybe
for
not, but yeah,
change so that isn't the card that
yeah.
people are
There's
dealt.
people who move for just financial gain from one country to another.
But
Just
why
move.
are you so opposed to the idea of advocating for change?
I
I'm
don't
not
think he's opposed to it.
opposed.
He's just
I'm
trying
not
to say
opposed. I'm
that
saying the
I
But
don't.
every
easiest
time I
solution.
bring it up, it's like, or you could just move.
He's pragmatic
Right.
guy though.
I'm just
He's
saying,
literally a
like, if
pragmatic
you
guy.
feel like you're not making any headway, you're hitting your head against the wall, you have to look at other options. You can still promote the change you want in the country
Yeah,
where you
I'm
were
trying to make
living,
it better
but you
for
can
everyone.
also at the same time try to move to a place that can afford you a better life of living immediately, and then still advocate for that country to change. You can do that. It's not like rocket science in that sense. You can do that. There's people who have voices
This.
online who say, I left this country because it doesn't support A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And until they change, I'm not going to come back. People can do that to show that they're not willing to support a regime that doesn't take them seriously. People can do that. People have been doing that.
By the way, welcome back, Tessa. Thank you so much. For tuning back in. Meryl, did you get that statistic, or are you still looking? Because there is another question here. So from Lee Foster, who this is the first time I've seen you on the stream. Thank you so much for joining. He says, I hope you are he, because some women are actually called Lee. Like like it depends where you're from though.
No. Just say Lee Foster. Move on.
Lee Foster. Okay. God, wow. Don't cancel me. I'm trying. I heard it. I know. He says if you can be pressured to detransition by family, bullying, whatever, can you be pressured into transitioning?
That's what I was basically saying. Like it can be both ways. But anyway,
You'd have to literally like swap everything about culture today. Like you could be if 98% of people were trans and 2% were
if
cis.
the
But
people in your immediate vicinity, again, we understand that the people you are around influence the way you are. So if you are around people who obviously are all transitioning, or a lot of them have the similar ideology, you're more likely to fall in with that and have that way of thinking and feel like maybe for you to fit into your group of friends or whatever, you might need to move a certain way. It's just social pressure.
so why are there still gay people then? Because most people are straight.
That's a very good
No,
point.
I'm saying no, because there's people who don't want to change no matter what, and that's what I'm trying to say. People should be.
No, there's people who are literally begging to
No, no, but
not
no,
be
no,
gay.
no. But he's right here because that's where the term bi-curious came from. That's where the term bi-curious came from because they were around like, and so they had that curiosity to like experiment and try. Like I literally remember growing up with this term. I mean,
And did they turn straight?
no, I'm not saying they turned either
Okay, so I
way.
don't see the point.
The point is they were curious about something as a result of
They test
being
their
around
waters.
certain people. Or
Well,
seeing
yeah,
it
but
in
curiosity
media.
is fine. As I said before, like explore, but it's not like the exploration can change your sexual orientation or your gender
Yeah,
identity
but for
or
some people, this is what I'm saying. We understand. Do you not? Do we can all agree that there are people who want to be accepted by communities and are willing to do what they need to do to get accepted by communities. There are those people who feel the need to be liked so much that they're willing to placate to people's and appease people. We understand there are girls who stay in toxic relationships, guys who stay in toxic relationships because they just want to appease their partner and be loved. And even with the community or their parents, do what their parents tell them because they just want to get the approval of their parents. That people are there who would do these things, aka even if they don't feel it deep inside, they're gonna do these things to try and get approval from others.
and we don't live in a society where being trans leads to more approval than being cis. It's just not the case.
No, but you
Even if you
get
like
a load of support online.
still we have like 2% trans people. The chances of you being surrounded with majority trans people is
No.
so incredibly low. Same for homosexuality, although that's a much bigger percentage. And there's people who are gay who are begging and pleading, and if they're religious, praying to not be gay, and everyone around them is straight, and they just can't change it because that's not how the mind works.
Hey B, hey
People can
B.
like go back into the closet and pretend like they're straight. That's what a lot of people do. But usually that is what you see in people who are trans but pretend to be cis in order to not be attacked, in order to be liked. There is just it's just unbelievably not realistic that there are people who are like being pressured to be trans to the point of going through the entire surgery and everything. That it's just
So are we discounting the people who
wild.
give their testimony and say like I felt there was a social pressure around me, the people I was hanging around with, who encouraged me to, they gave me more validation the more I, moved along this process, and I felt like that's what I wanted. But in reality,
There's still the medical gatekeeping that these people just wouldn't like
okay.
get qualified.
Hey
Eh,
B,
that's
hey
cool.
B, I'm happy to see you too. Welcome back to the channel. Hey, amazing. Thank you so much for tuning back in. Look, to be, let me go back. Right, what Given brought up is kind of an interesting thing because you have the idea of
If
kids
we're gonna
being.
talk about the minority, we can also talk about the minority in that sense, is what I'm just saying.
I no, I was literally about.
I don't see why instead of focusing on the trans people that need our help, we're focusing on the detransitioners, and instead of focusing on like the trans people that need help, we're talking about people being pressured into
I
it.
think this is
I
just a
don't
question.
get why we're constantly this happens all across the internet, and it's driving me absolutely wild. And then I'm like, hey, maybe advocate for social change so that these people just get access to proper healthcare. It's like they could just move, you know?
Right,
I don't get it.
If
right.
it's not happening as fast as you want, that's an option. How is that completely?
I never said it's not an option. It's about how it's brought. Never mind. Move on.
Right.
It's a valid option.
I never
What
said it wasn't.
what I was
Move
trying to
on.
what I was trying to establish is the argument between because you did say it that on a
I
previous
found the numbers, by the way.
oh we will get back, we will definitely get back to that, but it's just to clarify why I wanted to have this part, or at least hasn't tried to stop this part anyway, is because on one of our shows, I think it was with Steve, where we were talking about, when the whole non-binary issue, right? People actually, and you said that you don't need gender dysphoria to even be trans, like, like that
That's
if
true.
you identify and say, yeah, I'm trans, etc., and there is no presence of some kind of hormonal look, I don't know how to explain the scientific side, so I'm using hormones as a kind of a blanket term for whatever goes on.
Just gender incongruence.
Right. Whatever goes on in
because
that area.
Being trans is not assessed by looking at any biological metrics. That's not how being trans is assessed. Gender incongruence is a better term.
Repeat that again, sorry?
Incongruence.
Gender incongruence. Right.
Yes.
So with the absence of gender incongruence, and people still identify, because this is where I believe this is where you said in the previous show that there are fake trans and real trans. Is this the context that you were trying to establish, but we didn't have enough time to establish then?
I don't recall that part of the discussion, and I definitely wouldn't. I don't see myself using those terms specifically, but like I probably just acknowledged that people can lie, but the same is true for depression.
I definitely look. There's a video on the channel where I literally captioned it as fake trans, real trans. But what was going on there? Okay, to jog the memory, it was. Remember when I said that you are validating arguments from Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, etc., by saying that, like those going. No, I said that. I heavily.
Okay.
I said that.
I heavily doubt that I would validate any arguments by Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh.
No. Exactly. I said it because I wanted to understand where you're coming from when you said it was the bathroom debate. You know, when someone decides, hey, I'm identifying as a woman and walking to the bathroom. How do you know that this person is actually trans? And I'm not trying to like bring back that old conversation here. I'm trying to establish, was that a context that you meant, that you need something to go on in your head to or like, you know, some kind of biological makeup, or sorry, not biological, hormonal makeup, or
psychological.
Thank you. Damn. Psychological makeup to kind of like establish that you are really going through a real moment of transition, I should say.
Well, that's not how any of this is assessed or whatever, because we have not actually identified anything specific about the brain or whatever that we can point to say, that person is trans and that person isn't. Also because identity is so complicated. We also haven't found out how we can prove whether someone is actually gay or straight. Equally, we just have to take people on their word for a large amount, unless we have like super clear, undeniable reasons to doubt, but then still that doesn't mean you can prove it. Because if someone says that they're straight, but you've only seen them going out with people of the same sex, and you've always been there whenever they've had sex with anyone for whatever weird reason, then I'd say, valid reason to doubt, but it's still their choice how to identify.
Right.
They might at least be bi, you know, but that is such a non-realistic scenario as well. And when it comes to gender identity specifically, first of all, we just haven't seen a giant influx of people who claim to be trans while they aren't. There's been a lot of fear-mongering about it and a lot of culture war stuff about it, but whenever I tried to look for any of the sources, there just weren't any. I just couldn't find any. At most, it was just like, this one person came into the bathroom and they really looked like a male, but they said they were a woman and I don't believe them. Okay, that's not actually evidence. That's just you thinking a thing. But the point is, like, of course people can lie, but let's worry about that when we actually have statistical evidence that happens at any significant rate. Because if there is evidence that it happens at a statistical significant rate, I'll take it seriously because I want to be wherever the data points.
I mean, like, it's hard to record a statistic of someone lying if they were like, and I've seen a credible case of this, if they were sentenced to prison and they literally at that moment of being sentenced, they're like, I'm a woman. Like, it's hard to record this and it's hard to record this.
You realize that the circumstances are very different in that case, right?
No, I completely understand. I'm just saying how hard it is to actually record it and be like, that's a fake trans because I don't know. Sorry, that's a fake trans because we've done some tests, etc., and they don't pass that thing like that.
Like
That sets,
I'm personally in the context of specifically prisons, I am personally fine with needing to be able to show some evidence of having lived as the gender identity they claim to be for some significant amount of time before they were arrested. Because if that doesn't exist and the only time they've ever said they were that gender identity was after being arrested and knowing they would be sent to prison, then yeah, sure, that's valid to doubt that. But when we're talking about a bathroom, you can also just identify as a man and walk into a woman's bathroom to assault someone. Like, you don't need to. There's no bouncers that are
UK,
checking
that's
gender
literally what I'm
identity.
saying. There's no
interface, don't they?
measure. There's sorry, go on.
There's two people talking at the same time. Given,
Sorry, go on.
what are you saying?
No, I just said in the UK they brought up a law that you're not gonna make gendered bathrooms for any new buildings. It's just gonna be non-gendered bathrooms. So it's just gonna be like a bathroom you go into and just pee.
Oh,
So, like,
swear.
Yeah, and there's been multiple states in the U.S. that have had gender-inclusive bathrooms, meaning that trans women can use the women's bathroom and trans men the men's bathroom, and
but I think here
there's
there's
just
gonna be like
not there's been no evidence of a statistical increase in assaults
But
and
most,
privacy
like,
violations since the passing of those laws.
if you think about
The
it,
numbers haven't gone up.
A lot of restaurants just have bathrooms, and I think that's the
Yeah.
the consensus is we're just gonna have bathroom stalls, individual stalls. You can just go in and
Yeah.
lock the door. And
Same for
mean-
changing rooms. When people are like, I don't want to see a penis in my changing room. I'm like, why have communal changing rooms in the first place? Just have cubicles.
I was okay. I'm gonna make a joke, so I'm sorry if it doesn't land. I'm apologizing in advance for this, but I'm gonna say in light, with the whole man versus bear thing, right? In light of the whole man versus bear, and they're like,
yeah,
oh,
that
I'd
was
rather-
crazy. What the hell?
Yeah, I know, but I know, but
That's
isn't
the
it
dumbest
funny?
thing I've ever heard in my life.
But I think Kevin knows where I'm going with this. Isn't it funny that we were very comfortable spending time with a bear, right? But for some reason, when it comes to like the bathroom, etc., oh, men are okay now. You can you can walk into a bar. Okay, all right. I'll see myself out.
Yeah,
but-
that is
but
kind of
before-
like missing the point of the whole man versus bear debate.
Oh no.
Meryl, do you have those stats for me, please? I'm so sorry.
Yes. So the results published in the 2015 US Transgender Survey, which is, I think, the same one that I pulled the earlier stats from the reasons for detransitioning, found that 8% of respondents have reported having ever detransitioned. 62% of that group reported transitioning again and were living as the gender other than the one assigned to them at birth at the time of the survey. 62% of the detransitioners retransitioned.
So did that data? Did they provide some kind of what's the word? It's not an addendum, but some kind of memo to say why they were doing it or something like that. Did they give some kind of testimony to why they retransitioned? Why they did transition in the first place, then went back? Because if it was a mistake, like for example,
Like the reasons for.
you know what I mean? Like if it was a
Well,
mistake, then that's completely
that
understandable.
gender transition wasn't right for them was like only 5% of the respondents.
Right. But I'm saying if they are retransitioning, like what was the reason for going back to that? Because if they want to say, because for example, I can
You're
see
gonna
it.
suggest that they were like pressured back into it or something? Because
No.
No. Imagine though, it must be interesting because you know how hard it is. It's hard. Obviously, like it's easier to live with a choice that was made for you. But it's harder to live with a choice you made that didn't turn out the way you thought it would turn out.
Ooh,
I'd say it's much easier to live with a mistake I made than living with a choice someone else made for me.
I think it's much
forgiveness is
easier
a
because
bit-
you have no control, so you have no reason to worry about it, really. Like,
No, but like if
can't-
you regret it, forgiveness is something. It's a skill. I always see forgiveness as a skill. You're not like it's not some people don't forgive all their life. So I can't. If I made a choice
That's
and I regret it, huh?
that's intense. People that don't forgive the rest of life, bro. That's like you're killing yourself for no reason.
Amanda Lang, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the show. She says the exploration doesn't change who they are, but it can help them understand who they are. So
That is 100% true.
I don't disagree. I do think I'll put it.
So
this way.
then, this is interesting. This is an interesting topic of like. So in the term of sexuality, there is no free will to choose what you really want to do. It's all just kind of set out in stone for you. Essentially, it's kind of set out in stone for you.
Could you choose to be gay?
Or you could choose to go have sex with a man if you wanted to.
That's not what I asked. Could you choose to be gay?
Well, you could choose to go the rest of your life to have sex with men. So yeah, you could choose to be gay if you wanted to.
Does that make you gay? Does having sex with men make you gay? Or does that make you a straight man having sex with men?
I don't know. That's weird. That's wild.
I will say this for a fact.
Can you
I will say this for a fact.
Can you choose to be attracted to men and stop being attracted to women?
I don't. Okay. Given.
I think over time you might get more attraction to men if you keep going down that rabbit hole. But at the same time, you wouldn't probably necessarily get less attracted to women. But it might depend on how frequently, obviously, you're doing the thing, and you might find yourself more comfortable after a while with men than women because you've been with so many men.
Right. So at most, you could only like force yourself into some bisexuality.
By the way, if you like who you are, make sure you hit that like
button.
button.
But it's not like you can just choose to be gay.
Well, you could, again, you can't, it's not like a momentary change. It's like what do you call it? It's like choosing to be healthy. You won't just become healthy once you choose to be healthy. It's a long process to you.
Not at all the same thing.
You know what I mean? So if you choose to go down the road of having sex with men as a man, eventually you're going to.
But you already acknowledged that you wouldn't lose your attraction to women.
Yes, that's what I said. It might go down a little bit because
if that's the case, then why doesn't conversion therapy work?
Come again?
Conversion therapy.
If you could change your sexuality, then why doesn't conversion therapy work? And why has it been classified as just a method of torture by so many institutions?
That's what I was asking.
Why has it been banned in countries for being torturous?
If you go back to
I was asking, could you change your sexuality? And you said, well, maybe with having enough sex with the same person.
Well,
I'm saying, if that's the case, why doesn't conversion therapy work?
Because I think it's under force.
Right, but otherwise you're forcing yourself. There's plenty of people who go into conversion therapy wanting to be straight because they live in a religious community where being gay is like frowned upon or sinful or whatever. There's so many people who voluntarily go to conversion therapy and they're still gay afterwards because it just doesn't work.
It's almost like what do you call it? It's like it's interesting because again I have to speak on this from a Christian lens, so just pardon me for a second.
Before you go into that, hold that thought quickly. I just want to say hi to someone that's new here. Mikhail, the comes in, an Anarchy fan. What a name! What a name! Welcome to the show for the first time. Thank you so much for tuning in. No one is pressuring into what saying what. Okay, let's go. Given, go on. What were you saying? I just want to say.
Yes, I was going to say I have to look at it. I have to speak on this from a Christian lens. It's right. I just want to use an example. So in Christianity, they consider like doing those kind of things like a sin. Same with like having sex before marriage is a sin. Same as lying is a sin. So a lot of people would want to give up sinning or give up lying per se, but it might be hard for them to get to the point where they actually stop completely lying if they're not really diligent in, reminding themselves that they need to stop doing it.
I just want to remind people.
It's one of those things where people might want to do the thing, but it might just be hard to get the ball rolling and actually stopping doing the thing. People have difficulty stopping lying. People have difficulty stopping doing a multitude of things. If you're really steeped into it, it takes a lot of time. So it depends on the individual. But then that's in Christianity. That's why you have AKA the Holy Spirit, because it's not just you doing it. It's a supernatural force helping you do it.
For fairness and balance, I have to point out the false equivalence here because end of the day, that one religion is actually a choice, even if you were born into it. Like there's nothing biological that says that you belong to this religious group or anything. I have to bring that out there.
That is entirely correct.
Yeah, I have to bring that out there. So that is a false equivalence. I do understand why you went there to obviously give context to, why the forcing may have happened and why they feel a certain way. But I just want to say that in regards to
I'm just saying for the people, because she was bringing up the Christians who want to change from being gay, but they can't not stop it. So I'm saying It's the same as a Christian who wants to stop lying, but they cannot stop it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That's all
Right.
I'm
So,
saying, is they want to give up the sin, but they're finding it hard to give up the sin because the temptation is too great.
oh, okay. So she says, Nana. I don't know how to say your name properly, but I hope I did pronounce it correctly. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will raise the volumes up a little bit. Thank you for letting me know about that. So I hope it's a lot better now. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in for the first time seeing you here. So look, what I in regards to this, look, I'll just be honest. In regards to the sexuality part, I know for a fact that I've never looked at a guy and be like, I would wanna one day if no one is looking and we were like in a dark alley one day, I might give this guy a rim job or like I've never thought about this. Like so I can firmly say it's not a choice. Like I can I've never been curious either. Like I said, I don't know how far this curiosity thing, because I heard of bi-curious when I was younger. I don't know if that's even valid, like if that's even recognized scientifically
Well,
or
if
psychologically.
that's how you, if that's, well, the thing is with sexual orientation is that even though we can all agree, hopefully, that there's obviously like a psychological, neurological basis to it that you can't just change. Like you don't choose your sexuality. Despite that, the way that it's like divided is still entirely a social construct and a matter of identity, in the sense that the point that the fact that we choose in our language, at least, and our Western languages, because it's the same in Dutch and French and Spanish, whatever, the fact that we categorize these by the combination of the person we're describing and the person or the group of people they're attracted to, that's a cultural choice, because there's also words like androphilic and gynophilic, which just means attracted to men or attracted to women. But instead of using those terms, we have a different term for like being attracted to the same sex as opposed to the opposite sex. While, and I have to keep this straight because if I write it out, it's a lot easier. Because gay men and straight women are both androphilic, so they would be in the same group under that categorization. But in our
Please dumb it
categorization
down.
of
What does
straight
androphilic mean?
and gay,
Sorry, please
I
dumb it
literally
down.
just said androphilic means attracted to men,
Oh, okay.
gynophilic means attracted to women.
Sorry, go on.
Yes. So gay men and straight women would both be androphilic because both of them are attracted to men. Gay men, straight women, both attracted to men, right? So they would be in the same group if that would be how we categorize them. And that would then become a cultural identity of like, hey, the androphilic community. But in our culture, what we do is we classify being attracted to the opposite as opposed to the same sex. So then gay men and straight women would be in different groups because that's the gay community and there's the straight community.
It's like a
So
subcategory of
the
a category.
categorization is still a social construct, but the attraction that's underneath it is innate.
Right. Okay. So, um, I don't want to because last time we did talk about this attraction, and to be honest, this subject is very, very. There's so much to break down and cover in one, and we're still trying to. In fairness, I'm still trying to establish a baseline that we can all work off, so that in the future episodes where these topics become an issue again, because it's going to be, we are kind of in a war right now, it's going to be something like so I don't want to, because attraction is something that does convolute it as well, because when you look at like lesbian dating app, right, and lesbians saying, yeah, but you are a biological man, I'm not attracted to you like that, for example, right? And we discussed this on the previous show, but we touched on it very, very briefly. It was the same way that we kind of do it now, very, very brief. But in terms of, to go back to what I was asking earlier, right, in regards to the sexual identity, when I asked Given, if someone expresses, right, if someone expresses and looks like, what causes them to, like, I've seen women with beards, right? I've seen women with beards. Like they have there's an hormonal imbalance somewhere that causes them to grow beards like a man would, but they still identify as a woman.
Yeah.
What
Do you
really
mean
causes
PCOS?
that? Oh, it's some Asian lady. It's a bearded Asian
I was
lady.
I was only half listening, but you do have
Genetic
PCOS,
condition.
which is polycystic ovary syndrome, which can lead to beard growth, as far as
Maybe that's
as
what
far
it
as I
is.
remember.
I didn't look into it, but it's just something that I literally just remembered. That is
It could just be that she has higher testosterone levels or whatever, because everyone is capable of growing a beard. Like if I start to take testosterone, I would also grow a beard. If you were to take estrogen, you too would have boobies.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be fatter. That's why I kind of have to control when I drink my protein shakes. They kind of have to control those levels.
John-
Well, yeah, but if you were to take enough estrogen to actually reach like cis female levels, you would just grow boobs. And I don't mean just like fat, but like she'll like shape this
Actual
boob. You
boobs.
create more
No.
breast tissue, glands, and stuff.
Gynecomastia would become
No,
overloaded.
that's not in denial. But what I'm trying to understand is basically how that could happen. And because if Given meets her on the street, guaranteed, if like I'm pretty sure based on Given's answer earlier, he's going to say, "You are a man." Actually, let me just ask you. You're
And
right
why
here.
would you
You're-
do that?
You're right here, Given. Let me ask you. If you were to see a bearded lady on the street, would you believe that they're
Yeah.
a man or a woman?
Well, it depends, because if you have a genetic condition,
Are you
I'd
asking
probably-
about their gender identity or their
I'd
sex?
probably ask if you have a genetic condition. That means you're either like if you
But no.
assigned female
Nah,
at birth
Don't
and
don't
you
cap
No,
Given.
have
If
a
you
beard.
you would literally
question-
ask. That's like
There's a reason I take this. I
No,
take the terms
because
very
there's
seriously. Are you asking about their sex or their gender identity?
There's the Muslim lady with a beard. What's her name? She was on BBC. Or was it on BBC or whatever? I don't know if she was on BBC or whatever, but I've forgotten her name. But she came on BBC and she had a beard. She looks like a woman, but she actually just has a beard because of the condition. So if you actually genuinely look like a woman and you just have a beard, I'd probably, if you're coming up to me and saying I'm a woman, I'd probably ask like, oh, do you have a condition that means you have a beard? And she says, yeah, I
would
do.
you
I'm
actually
like,
ask
okay,
that though?
cool.
I would feel
If
awkward
she
asking
actually
that.
looks like a woman, if
Oh.
she actually looks like a developed woman with an actual beard, I'd be like, is that a
I would
condition
just
or what's up?
like not go inquire after like their personal medical information, because that seems kind of disrespectful.
It's not disrespectful. It's just being
Okay,
upfront and stuff.
maybe talk
Because
to
they
more
know
people
I'm
who
thinking
have
about
the.
it. So
Maybe
what's wrong?
yeah, but that doesn't mean that they like it, because
Well, if they don't
like
want to ask, they don't want to
people who are in wheelchairs also hate it if you keep asking them like, hey, why are you in a wheelchair? Just leave them alone. I've heard from enough women with PCOS who are like, I'm so done with people constantly asking me like, hey, are you a trans man? Why do you have a beard? Do you have this condition or
I'm
whatever?
so
Just
done with people
why
asking
would
me,
you ask
"So
them?
where are you from?" But I still answer the question because I know it's not.
That's not personal medical information. And it's also not something that they might be stigmatized for, because people with PCOS like generally get stigmatized a
But
lot.
clearly,
Like,
you're
if
proud
they're-
of you having the beard because you're out there with the beard. If you're ashamed of it, you shave it.
It doesn't mean that you want to be just harassed about it the whole time.
It's not being harassed. It's a quick question done with respect. It's not like I'm being like, huh, why do you have a beard?
What?
be-
But
like-
why would you ask in the first place?
They came up to me. He said someone came up to me.
Yeah,
Like, bro, what
to
are you
be
talking about?
to be fair,
Yeah, but
it
why
was
would you ask?
to be
Because
fair,
I'm
it was just
curious. I'm not gonna lie to you and not ask the question. I'm honest and upfront. I will ask you.
Okay, if I walked
Oh,
up
you
to you and I
actually would.
asked like, hey, do you have a penis? Like randomly in the street, I don't know you.
Yeah, I do. What? What's up?
You don't think that's kind of weird?
What do you? If you walked up, if you
If you walked up to
me-
someone who is fat and you're like, hey, why are you fat?
no.
no, but like
obviously
to be
understand
fair,
that a
to be
woman
fair, is them
with a
walking up to
beard
them
is out of the
the
norm. It's more out of the norm than a fat person, bro. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but walking up to someone doesn't mean that you want them to
No,
ask
no.
after their personal medical
fair,
information.
To be
They
fair,
walked up
Meryl,
to me.
To be,
I didn't walk up
was-
to
I
them.
That
was
doesn't
about to say-
matter. They didn't
It
walk
does
up to you to
matter.
have you question them about their medical information.
It's
No.
not that-
I will
what
say
am I
this.
gonna do
I
with
will
it?
say
Like,
this, Meryl. Meryl, give it. I will say this.
not that
Knowing the
deep.
way I am, yeah, I would actually ask it, but it will be in such a joking way that you understand it's very lighthearted and you can literally refuse to answer if you want to. But it will be something that they would have to volunteer. So when I asked to give in a question, it was them,
Yeah, you know,
them going up to
I'm not
him.
comfortable answering. I'm like, oh no, sorry, it's okay.
But damn. But the reason why I went there is because I was trying to understand the link between your. Is it? I keep forgetting the technical term, but it's basically what your sex, like the link between how your internal hormones and all of those things are expressing.
Your internal gender identity versus your gender expression.
External one, yeah, versus how you choose to express outwardly. I understand and I appreciate that. Let me try and track down a name. Someone said it in the chat. Nom de Plume said in the chat. Sorry, Hanam Kaur. Yes, that's who I was talking about. So I do appreciate that for her situation. That was a syndrome, but I'm like, sometimes it may not necessarily be the beard. Sometimes it may just be something that doesn't manifest into some kind of I don't know what to call it, but it doesn't translate over to someone having manly features, for example. But there is something there genetically, or I don't know what word to actually use, but there's something there that is making them think psychologically, etc. So I'm trying to reconcile, how does someone that is like that, someone that has that going on, I think you said it earlier, gender discombulate. No, that's not a word either. That's not a word either. But
gender incongruence, because their gender identity is incongruent with their sex.
Gender discombobulation.
that.
I was like, what are you gonna say?
I understand the gender incongruent part, but we still didn't link it to say, does this actually have like an imprint in their biology?
Well, we've already been over that, because if it weren't, then we wouldn't see the satisfaction rates, and we'd see higher detransition rates, and we'd also not see as many detransitioners retransition and all of that stuff, and we wouldn't see as high levels of depression and suicidality in trans people as we do in cis people. We also wouldn't see those numbers go down with transition. Like, reasons galore.
That's not what I mean by that's not what I'm trying to say in terms of a genetic link, or whatever we want to call it. What I'm trying to say is, do you see, like, is there something that says, oh, actually, I'm looking at their x-ray, or I'm doing a scan and a brain scan or whatever, and this thing happens, that's in their anomaly.
The brain thing we
haven't identified which specific markers are involved. We have theories, like more like hypotheses. We have identified some correlations, but we're not entirely sure of the causation yet. And we haven't even got that for sexual orientation either. And I also don't see why it matters. Like, it's interesting. We should keep researching it to learn more about it.
Basically,
but I don't think it's important to be able to put someone in a scan and say, you're trans. Like,
yeah, we don't have we can point out the genes that kind of affect each other, and then the hormonal imbalance that you need exactly to basically say you're gonna.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we found some genes that are involved in sexual orientation, but it's not a one-to-one. Like, if you have this gene, you're gay. If you don't have this gene, you're straight. It's way too complicated for that. Like, it's just not feasible to identify it like that.
I think
we don't do it for depression either, and we give them like powerful medicine because of it.
Yeah, and some people have some dangerous side effects, from taking these style of medicine. Because
and that's their choice if they're adults.
Yeah, but
they get informed of the side effects, and if they want to do it, they do it.
I completely understand, but
they're adults.
Yeah, I completely understand. What I'm trying to say is, at least, do you think that we should be heading into that direction when you look at things like, because when you look at the prison thing and
This is what
like,
happens though.
well, gone.
No, so this is natural. This is I feel like this is natural trends with humanity, in terms of changing the way we view things, and then eventually, with in the future, we might change it to something else. Who knows? It's just ever evolving. Like back in the Roman Empire, obviously everything was kind of everyone just banging everyone. Who cares? you
um,
know where they looked upon, like, they kind of didn't care if a man had sex with a man. They just cared about what position that man was in and what it signified about them as an
position.
individual. So it wasn't really like a thing of like, oh, you're gay or you're this. It's just like, oh no, he's a dominant man because he takes what he wants, and then he's a feminine man, or he's more of a effeminate man because he gets taken advantage of. They didn't really have like strong labels on like, you are this, you are that, and that's that. You know what I mean? And then it evolved where they became more, constrained with Christianity. And then again, the road is evolving where we're kind of becoming more loose. And who knows, in the future, it may come to a different level of understanding where we're like, we're actually these transcendent beings who just kind of, inhabit these bodies, and it doesn't mean anything. It's just all whoop-de-whoop. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm just here for the ride, and let's see where it goes.
Same here. I'm just trying to understand the ride I'm on because I kind of don't want to fall off. Like, in all fairness, like I don't. I kind of want to stay on the ride, and I feel like my seatbelt is not on
It's
right.
very interesting. It's a very interesting ride, and yeah, I find it quite fascinating, to be honest.
So to go back to, so in regards to this decision where they have decided for single sex wards, Meryl, what do you think of this decision? Like, how do you think it would impact trans people?
Sorry, I was busy schooling
You're
someone
fine.
in chat for a second.
You're
What
fine.
was the question, Your
So
Honor?
based on the decision that Victoria Atkins, got her name right, finally made in regards to um, the proposal, because it did receive a counter comment which says they have always recognized this, they have always seen it. Let me just quickly go to the article. Damn it. So basically, let me just read that for you. So basically, it basically says the opportunity to update the NHS constitution should not be about grabbing headlines, but to strive to reach a consensus of upholding these values and closing the gap between the waiting times and etc. So basically, what Taylor, is it Matthew or Michael Taylor? I think it's Matthew.
I
Matthew
thought it
Taylor.
was Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew Taylor. What Matthew Taylor is basically saying there is that we have bigger issues to worry about. So the single sex being constitutional is not necessarily a big issue to worry about. But do you think that it is something that is big for people that identify, for trans people? Do you think that is a big deal for them?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because weirdly, there's this whole focus on same-sex healthcare, and there's no talk of same gender healthcare. They're like, we have to make it possible for people to request someone of the same sex to treat them, and it's not like I'm necessarily opposed to that, but why don't we then also enshrine the right for people to ask for same gender healthcare? Because I don't see why one would be valid and the other wouldn't. That
You
just
just let
seems
everyone be
very
treated by
strange.
everyone and be done with it.
Well, that's
Wait, say
also
that
a
again.
possibility, but like,
If
I
we're
mean,
trying to move to a world that doesn't have these constraints, let's allow everyone to be treated by everyone, and let's move on.
well, yeah, but I understand that it is within the patient's right to, like, if they say I don't feel comfortable with this doctor, to request a different one.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's
But
like
I find it weird that there's so much focus on them requesting a same-sex one, but then there's no similar attention given to people who want to request the same gender one. While I could see reasons for both, for whatever. Um,
Well, probably they
and
can
it's also
just
because
say,
there's this whole larger narrative
but can they
going
not
on,
just
but
express
also
that?
it completely bypasses the fact what that would also mean for trans people if we're talking about not necessarily requesting a same-sex healthcare provider, because that's just one person, but if we're talking about like being in a ward with people all of the same sex or same gender or whatever. I legitimately searched and searched for any significant data on the harm supposedly caused by including trans women in women's wards, and found bupkis,
Where
and
would you
it was
find?
very easy to
No, no,
find
no.
the
Whoa.
contrary.
Wait. Before
Like,
we dive
I
into
could
that,
find personal stories, and I feel for those people, but that doesn't constitute
that's not what
enough
I'm
to
trying.
discriminate against an entire demographic.
That's not what. Yeah, that's why I kind of asked you the question, because what I'm trying to understand, and you threw out something that I didn't acknowledge, or well, not acknowledge, but I didn't think of before, and that is, well, you said same sex and same gender. So I'm like, okay, let me try and reconcile this, because we know that sex is male and female. We've said that earlier. So let me try and reconcile this. Are you saying that people should also choose to have non-binary, for example? Because that's not sex, that's gender.
Well, if they want that, I don't see
But then
why they
how
wouldn't
many
have the right
doctors are
to.
non-binary? And in your hospital, how likely is it to find a
Well,
non-binary?
it's their choice, and if they just
What
get,
is
if they hear back like we don't have any non-binary doctors on here, then it's their choice to either get no health care or one from that's not non-binary. Like, that's up to
Oh,
them.
nah, that's crazy, bro. So you're willing to die?
Is it crazy to grant people the right to just choose for themselves?
No. I'm saying, it's crazy that you're willing to die because you.
Well,
You don't have a
that would
non-binary
be weird. But
doctor?
then again, there's also
Bye.
lots of religious people that are willing to die because they don't allow blood transfusions. So
That's
there's
fair.
that.
But then obviously that has historical relevance because
You
again,
know that appeal to
Okay.
tradition is a fallacy, yeah?
no, I'm just saying. But that's why they're holding it down, because they traditionally there was a reason for
Okay,
that.
let's not get into that anyway. But there has been, especially in the UK, it's been super rife, and it's been very much fanned by, there she is again, J.K. Rowling, this whole narrative that trans women are supposedly a risk to cis women. Citation needed. Like, all I found, and I've really tried looking hard, is just individual stories of people who felt unsafe. And while I'd like for people not to feel unsafe, the alternative is that those trans people literally get assaulted
Question.
when forced out of that space. And I think that being assaulted is worse than feeling unsafe, especially when you're already of such a transphobic nature that you unjustifiably feel unsafe.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead. What?
So are you opposed to cis women only spaces?
Yes.
Are you opposed to
It's
trans
ooh,
Like, it heavily depends on like the context and what the alternatives are, but in most cases where it's been proposed, I don't see the point.
Are you
And the
opposed to
alternative would be worse.
Are you opposed
no,
to
I
trans
agree
women only
with this
spaces?
because go on.
Are you opposed to trans women only spaces?
Yes.
Are you opposed to men only spaces?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
That's
That's all.
Like,
That's all.
I'm
You
at
don't need
least
no explanation,
consistent.
that's it.
No, you are very consistent, and I am mad
That's
at
it.
because there is something that literally happened that I'm not sure if you know
But
who.
what? So wait, hold on.
Go on.
If people can request to have the doctor they want and sacrifice their life, then can't people just request to have a space for themselves with the people that they want to have a space with, and that be okay?
Well, there's a difference between whether there's a doctor available to help you and whether we have infinite rooms to accommodate for. Like, do we want 72 bathrooms to accommodate for? Only want people who are blonde in there.
No.
Not blonde, she/her. Like, there's some people that identify with the gender of she/her or
That's
whatever.
pronoun, not a gender.
Zer.
You see how confusing this is. So what gender does it
It's
fall under?
actually
then?
not that.
Okay. But my question is,
So you can have any pronouns you want.
Inclusive to a specific gender identity.
Okay, but what pronoun does that? What gender does that pronoun? That's the one, other way around. What gender does that pronoun actually fall under?
Yep.
The she/her, etc.
Pronouns and gender identity are not a one-to-one map. It's not like this gender identity has these pronouns and this one has that pronouns.
Okay,
It's just
yeah.
like you have gender identities and you have pronouns.
But we know
Basically,
he/him
pronouns
belongs
is-
to male. But we know that he/him
Generally,
belongs to
there are some women who prefer
cis
he/him,
men,
but
huh?
they're rare. There are some women who prefer he/him, but they're rare.
But I'm saying conceptually, we know that belongs to.
Conceptually, it would just be easiest to group it under non-binary because
Okay.
the easiest way to document it. Like, I don't like the whole people who go on there's 96 genders or whatever. Like, there's so many ways that people can identify, and that's all up to them. I don't mind. I don't care. That's fine.
All right.
But generally, to keep things like manageable mentally, I just say there's
manageable?
man, there's woman, there's non-binary, there's agender.
So there's a limit. There's a
But then
limit.
you could also like look at gender fluid and gender queer. But you can
There's a
like
limit.
agender, non-binary, gender queer, and
Rachel,
gender fluid are kind of like a ball.
This is what I said last time. This is what I said last time. I'm like, there's a limit for people, and for some people, that limit is just further along the road than other people.
You can
And-
keep three in mind, like just
And-
man, woman, non-binary. You could do that, right?
Yeah.
You have
What
that
if
many brain
someone-
cells, right?
What if you meet someone and they're like, I'm not considered non-binary. I'm considered A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I'm like, bro, like, come on, I can't keep doing this.
Then you address them that way. How many names are you keeping in your mind right now?
No, I'm just saying, there's people who are very difficult. And
Like
there's people who
I
wanna be-
probably know like 500 names, and I can keep all of them in my mind, and I know to address that person with that name.
I know.
Well,
I'm just saying.
well, I know.
I'm just trying to.
Well,
I'm
It's
trying
not
to
any
say that-
different than
I think you're not
Well-
hearing. There are people who are difficult, and there are people who just want to be difficult, and some people don't want to placate to the difficult people because it's just being difficult to be difficult.
how do you know if they're being difficult or if they're being sincere?
Then how do you know the other person is not being sincere as well? This is what I'm saying. We don't know.
I'm asking you, how do you know if they're being sincere or if they're being difficult?
You from the perceived perception of what they're doing to you.
How?
That's how people judge.
true.
That's how you judge
How?
if someone's being sincere. How you're
Well-
perceiving the interaction. If they're
But
being
if
sincere or not.
if someone says like this is my gender identity, how do you know if they're being sincere or not?
Well, if you keep going around down the road, yeah. Let's say you refer to them by name, yeah, and they say no, you can use pronouns, but make sure you use these pronouns, and you're like, no, just use your name, and they're like, no, but you can use my pronouns. Like I'm saying, then you start to think this person's just being difficult.
Fair point.
It depends on the discourse you're having with the person.
I think
How
the
that
person that's being
conversation-
difficult is the person that refuses to use the person's pronouns and just
No,
uses
if
their
you
name.
want to use their name
Like,
instead of
hey,
pronouns.
earlier tonight I was talking to this guy Kevin, and Kevin constantly said that Kevin's parents were like Kevin's mother said to Kevin
Yeah,
that Kevin should go
that's
to
fine.
like Kevin's father's place, like Kevin, and never use the word he. That's just
Exactly, that's fine. But I'm saying that people who might be difficult and say, hey, you can use these pronouns, and then you're like, no, I'll just use your name, and they're like, no.
no. What I just did was how ridiculous it is to refuse to use pronouns and only use their name instead. It's also
But
kind
you
of
can if you want
disrespectful.
to. It doesn't hurt the conversation, does it? It doesn't hurt the conversation.
And you don't think that it comes across as a little bit disrespectful? But again,
No.
this is all
I'm
just
referring to you by your
this
name.
is all unrelated to how can you tell if someone's being sincere or
could-
not?
You could pick your own name. You could pick your name, and I'll just refer to you as that name you picked.
How do you know if people are being sincere or not if they tell you their gender identity?
I have been
You
struggling
never
with
know.
this
You
one.
just have to
I've been
dis-
struggling
you have
to
to
remember
discern
this
from the
one
conversation
name.
you're having.
I'll,
The hell?
one second.
This is
one-
common
one-
sense.
One second. I have
I
been
couldn't hear what
struggling.
Gilbert was saying.
I have been struggling.
You
We'll go back
discern
to
from
this.
the conversation you're having and the perceived intentions of the person. That's how you discern. You judge. You make a judgment. That's how you tell if people are being genuine or not. You make a judgment.
Yeah, what do you judge them on?
On the
Like, how can
information
you
they're giving
tell?
you and how they're acting. when
What
they're
about that
giving you-
information?
Bro, are we going around in circles? I think we
Doesn't
all
the
know-
fact that you can't give a straight answer to this kind of
I
like, oh, it's
gave
just
you a straight
vibes?
answer. I gave you a straight answer.
Yeah,
The
no,
way-
your answer is just like vibes.
Well, duh. If someone, I can tell you the same information two different ways, and one could seem genuine, one could seem ingenuine, like disingenuous. That's fact. So I don't know why we're playing this
Right,
game. Like
but
it's not true.
earlier when I asked how do you tell if people are being difficult, basically the answer you gave was if it's complex, what they want me to remember.
No, it's based on the interaction. If they're being difficult, they could be trying to be difficult for the sake of being difficult. You have to judge that based on the interaction.
But there's nothing in specific
Bro,
that you can
oh
tell
my
me
God.
that shows
Well, we have to
whether
have
they're
the
genuine
interaction
about
to
it or.
determine if someone's being genuine or not. You can't just determine.
So the answer to how can you tell if someone is genuine or
Okay,
not is you
Meryl-
just do.
Meryl
You have,
Given.
yeah,
Hold on,
Mero's
hold on.
being
Guys,
you're being
guys,
ridiculous.
guys,
You're being
guys,
ridiculous.
guys.
This is just
1 sec.
Pete-
What Meryl, just to sum up, what Meryl was basically saying was in regards to the how genuine someone is. Give the scenario that was posed was he or she, I don't know who they are, blah blah, but they offered you their pronouns, right? And they say address me as this. Given opts to address their name and says, you know what, I'll just rather say your name, right? But the person really wants him to address him by address them or whatever pronoun they are, but the point is they want them to address by the pronoun, given ones to address by the name. In my opinion, they're both being difficult because either way, someone has to make a concession somewhere. Someone literally has to make a concession. So if given decides that they,
I don't get why that's being difficult. Also, there's a difference between you find it difficult and they are being difficult, as if there's some kind of disingenuous or.
I literally said that both of them were at fault.
That's what he said. Yeah. If both
sorry.
Both of them were at fault. Yeah.
If both just.
I must have missed that sentence then. But still,
fine,
like I feel like a lot of the time when I ask people this question, the majority answer that I get is if it's complicated for me to remember, in which case I'm just like, that's your problem.
It is that problem. I don't want to deal with.
Look, I just want to say this. If this person wasn't on my screen, I would have forgotten her name. Amanda Lang. Thank you so much for this question. She's on my screen. That's why I remember Amanda, because if I didn't click on her name, I would have missed this question. And she says, if we are proposing cis-only public spaces, going back to what we were talking about earlier, who is doing a physical workup of every... This made me laugh when I was reading the first time. Of every person walking into that space to verify their physiology. This is a brilliant question.
That's a very, very good point. And that's the same for bathrooms, because we currently do not actually have like single-sex bathrooms because nobody.
This is where AI comes in. This is where AI comes in. We need to implement AI.
That is going to be such a human rights violation. I don't even know where to begin.
And you know what could actually happen, yeah? Imagine if you have like your blood work or in a system somewhere, it has all your information and you kind of give your identity, how you identify, all that kind of stuff information. And that is then just used in a CCTV system. So whenever you go somewhere, it identifies you accurately as who you are and what you represent yourself as. I think that's where it's gonna go. If it keeps
like apart from the massive privacy and security risks and like all that kind of stuff. Have you ever seen Nosedive, the Black Mirror episode? Like that social credit system they have in China and shit.
I've seen every episode.
Also, there was also this whole thing about AI not recognizing black faces because it was trained on like general data that for some reason mainly included white faces, so black people like couldn't use facial recognition software and stuff.
AI thing where
it depends where the AI is developed. It's impossible to have the same problem.
Certainly,
in Africa,
but the fact is that it's very sensitive to that kind of issues.
Got your point.
Because it's still humans deciding what to train the model on, and humans are fallible.
So that's what happened. I think.
Humans are bigoted, so that doesn't help.
I don't know which system it was, which AI system it was, but there's an article in it where it was just no matter what historical figure you asked for, they came out as black, which was pretty funny.
Oh, there was also this AI thing where it had like a pixelated face of what I could very clearly recognize as Obama, and then it was asked to reconstruct like the face according to the pixelated image, and it just consistently kept turning out white people.
Damn it, I forgot that.
But it was Obama, like.
To go back, oh damn it, I forgot, because I do have a question in rebuttal to this question, because what she said, I actually agree with this, by the way. I never agreed with public space.
I agree with you.
I never agreed with public spaces anyway. A certain group only spaces, because I'm not gonna lie. The more I learn about slavery and learning about my history, etc. When I see these things, it kind of signals that. I'm sorry. It kind of triggers that.
Of course.
We might be heading back into a time where we see a group of white only or Irish only, or I'm trying to say so. And this is why I never agree with the black only spaces either. Go on.
This is why I like honesty and people being like honest and genuine to if they agree with something or if they don't agree with something. It's because I don't want to live in a place where everyone's just being fake nice to each other. Right. Just for the sake of being fake nice.
I also don't want to live in a place where people like doubt someone else's genuinity. That's not.
But I'd rather know
doubt other people's honesty first
I'd rather
before
know
taking
you
them
doubt me
seriously.
and then move on to people who actually appreciate me than for me to just think you like
No,
me.
say that you introduce yourself to me and you're like, "Hey, my name is Given," and I'd be like, "Is it?"
Is it? Yeah.
I'm
then I
gonna
just,
check that. I'm gonna find your personal
Let's not.
records before I call you.
I just want to know.
Until I'm verified on your records that you're actually called Given, I'm gonna call you Bob.
Yeah,
By
I
the
just want
way,
to hang out with you.
by
Yeah,
the
just
way,
move on. That's
to
it.
to go back into that safe
It's not that
spaces
deep.
thing. This decision happened that just literally popped into my mind. He says, Charlotte Proutman. If you like, I'm sure some of you might know Charlotte Proutman.
Not
right?
her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to talk about it. Because this is an interesting thing. Because the Garrick Club has always been an exclusive male club, right? It's always been exclusive for aristocrats, etc., and is where males went to congregate. A lot of people didn't care for this decision, to be honest. I've seen a lot of dissenting voices from women that are like, we don't really want to be there. We have our own Alexandra club. Like, we have our own. We don't need to be in that space. We have our own. But what she basically did was basically got the Gary Club to admit female members, and I'm like, well, what's the point of having spaces then? What's the point of having your own space? What's the point of fighting for your own space if this is what you're gonna do? Because this is why.
But
this
it's
is where
almost
going,
like, guys, we understand that people like to do these things, whether like it's gonna be a guy's night, it's gonna be girls' night. People love to do these things. It's just what people do. That's what they like to do.
I think that a main issue that is staying unaddressed here is that if we're talking about like a guy's night or a girl's night or whatever,
that's just one
is
event.
that why should then the focus be only on sex at the exclusion of gender identity? Because if I'm having a girl's night, I'd love for trans women to show up.
You can call it all-inclusive women's night. You can call it.
No, but I'm just asking, why are people so insistent on having it focused on single sex when there's no evidence to point to that actually being less harmful than the alternative?
No,
well, first and foremost, first and foremost, when they say, we gotta clear the air here, because when they say girls' night, boys' night, whatever, men's night, or stag do, whatever, when they're doing all those things, it's a one event. It's not a regular meeting, like a space, like female only spaces would be, because they typically apply to clubs like like spas, for example, ladies only gym, for example, ladies only, like or men's only gym, for example. That's where technically that kind of talk would apply, but it doesn't. I don't think a male only space applies to someone that wants to do a stag do, or they want to do a girls' night out. I don't think that.
No, I agree, and that's
applies.
actually I think that's actually classified under like freedom of association. Like, you can, if you want to do a club night for like cis women only, you can do that.
Yeah,
that's fine. But if we're talking about like legally enforced spaces, then it's different. Because if you're talking about a bar and you want to rent out the bar for a cis woman only club, you can do that, but that's not something that's then legally enforced. It's not like the law is then saying that only cis women can come in. And also the bar is like a company, or like the proprietor, like they have the right to do with their space whatever they want, as long as it's still legal.
Right. Everything you said there, I agree with, because if someone wants to join in now and I'm like, actually, no, you can't come, at least I don't have to face
it doesn't even need to be, like, there could be cis, there could be cis women you just don't want to invite because you don't like them.
Right.
Like, it's not like I'm discriminating against everyone I didn't invite to my birthday.
By the way, I just wanna applaud the chats for a minute here. I really do, because
chat's been on fire, and I've only been partially
right. I just want to applaud them, because literally I've seen heated back and forths, and I know they're heated, and I know that I've seen it, but there has been no curse language, there's been no mudslinging or anything like that. It's just people just like,
I'm not sure if that's the case. I have seen some mudslinging.
When I say mudslinging,
I did see that, like, the people who are actually in agreement with science have been accused of denying reality and stuff. So, like, I consider that.
that's not the muscling I mean. I mean muscling as in, oh, you're a piece of S, or you are, or you should die, because that's it. Like, but you know what I'm trying to say, like denigrating someone's character, as opposed to just like if you have a viewpoint and you don't express it, you don't know how to express it properly. For example, saying someone is denying reality, again, that's an opinion, but it's not the same as you're just deluded. I think that's completely muscling for no reason. But I just want to say, you guys have been, the chat has been amazing by not like at least wanting to cut each other's throats out. Basically, what I'm trying to say. Nom de Plume says gentlemen and lady. Just wanna wait. You do Meryl, you do identify as a lady, right? Lady.
Yes.
People don't use lady anymore. I want to bring that back. Women.
I am a cisgender woman. I am female, and I also identify as a woman. That makes me a cisgender woman.
Right, a sweet cis lady.
Changing room. I say changing room, yes, because of what's been happening on TikTok with
out of interest, do any of you feel uncomfortable if there are women? Oh, she was actually addressing this to a gentleman. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, addressing us.
Okay, addressing this to gentlemen. So Nom de Plume says, out of interest, do any of you feel uncomfortable if there are women using the same bathrooms and changing rooms as you? Why are you doing this?
Not bathrooms.
It's a valid question, though. I mean, I frequently use the men's bathrooms because the queues at the ladies are just like forever, and so far, I just haven't seen people care.
By the way, I love that Rick and Morty episode because, like, literally, this is something exclusive to men. We don't have these problems. We just go in, do the business, get out. I don't know. I'm joking. But.
And also, like, trans people have been using bathrooms for their gender for ages, and lots of people will not have even noticed because usually they wait until they pass well enough so that they're not immediately clocked and unsafe.
I do have something to say to that, but and I'll definitely return to that because I do want to close out on that because it links back to our previous episode in regards to that outrage with the casting. It kind of links back to that, but I will go back to that. But to answer Nom de Plume's question, if I saw a woman in the same change room, I'll be freaked out, but I'll be wondering, is your boyfriend here?
I'd be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'll be legit. Like, bathroom,
I'd be uncomfortable.
Nah, it's just weird, man. It's just weird. But
no, it's because of the fear mongering happening on social media, where like even in gyms, someone glances over the direction.
Could you imagine if she walks out of the bathroom and says they assaulted me? Could you imagine that?
Like, bro, like no one cares. Like we're just maybe trying to check if you're free with the machine. You know what I mean? Like it's like.
Do you know that there's actually data from a Harvard study that shows that trans teens who are forced to use the bathroom for their sex as opposed to for their gender are assaulted at a higher rate than if the opposite were the case.
No, I don't. I think
no data to the contrary exists, and I would very much like trans kids not to be assaulted personally, but maybe that's just me.
Like, I think you're bolstering my point on this fear. I think you're bolstering my point because if I see a woman walk into the bathroom, that's the first thing that comes into my mind. What is she gonna say when she leaves? I'm kind of have to be on my best behavior. Like,
you're kind of like, bro, you can't even be at ease.
You can't. Yeah.
You are. It is also a fact that like trans people are actually like assaulted at a higher rate. If like especially trans women in men's bathrooms are assaulted at an actually higher rate.
We're just talking about women.
Yeah, but
women.
The question was just about women.
But
it's so hard to say cis women. I don't know why.
She just said women, so.
Nom de Plume, I hope I answer your question. I'll be very uncomfortable. But to go back to what you were saying.
Too. Very uncomfortable.
To go back to what you were saying in regards to, I personally do think that there has been, because I have met trans people before this debate, like back in 2010, I would say. Before I went to uni, I met one, 2009, 2010. It wasn't like people saw it. I think maybe we may laugh under our breath, but it wasn't something that we'll go on social media and like. Now it's very charged. Like the reason why I want to link this back is because remember when they casted Romeo and Juliet in 2014 with Orlando Bloom for the West End show, no outrage, no nothing was said. I think that we're living that again. I think it wasn't a charged thing like to be trans, but back then I don't think it was a charge. If you're talking about 80s, that's a completely different context. I think that was really.
See, it's yeah. I think it's weird when people
But I think there was a period of time where people were actually living, and they were just doing things, and no one would care. But now, because it's kind of like cyclic, and it's being brought back up again.
Everything's being weaponized.
Everyone has an opinion. What do you think, Meryl, of that? Meryl?
Pardon me. What was the question?
No, I was saying, what do you think in regards to, and in future episodes, we will dive more and more into this as they develop. But I was going to say, what do you think? Do you think that the outrage that we're seeing now on social media, do you think that it's more of a reflection of a cycle? Because like I can understand back in the 80s and 90s, it was.
Oh yeah, the same thing happened to gay people. The same thing also happened to black people in the civil rights era, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
Because I literally I don't have them here. I'd really have to dig deep into my Twitter bookmarks, because there's actually someone who collated like newspaper articles, like newspaper columns, not like big articles, but like newspaper entries.
Would love that for the next show. Yeah.
From when desegregation was happening in the U.S. and people were making the exact same arguments against desegregation in bathrooms as they did later for allowing gay people in bathrooms, as they do now for allowing trans women in bathrooms. Exact same rhetoric, because black women were painted as these brutish, ape-like, aggressive women who were going to beat white dainty ladies up.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is there was actually a period of time that I feel, remember the Orlando Bloom film that I brought up in the last show regarding, and we were just laughing about it because it just turns out that Romeo and Juliet was casted in 2014 with a black woman and Orlando Bloom. Same thing, same exact thing, but there was no outrage. That's what I'm trying to say, because I actually have met a trans woman. I have actually met a trans woman that back in 2008 or 9 or something like that, and and it's not something like, she actually had friends, like a group of friends were women, like I don't know what my friends reacted. My friends probably didn't even realize. I don't know if so like maybe you can say that some people may have been laughing under their breath, but by and large, I don't think it was a talking point or an issue that you will see on social media back then compared to now. Like, do you think that we're just going through cycles and cycles and cycles, I
think that especially a lot of
been an issue.
There's a lot of legitimacy, well, not like real legitimacy, but like perceived legitimacy because of the massive influence of politics. And again, we saw the same thing with desegregation now with the gay rights movement back in the day, that obviously underground there was already a lot of stuff happening, but it didn't become like a really big deal until we had like the Stonewall riots, or until we had like the riots that were happening in the civil rights movement. And like whenever there's this massive upheaval, that's when people are starting to talk more about it. And we saw the same thing with BLM as well, that suddenly was this big thing, even though like equality based on like racial equality was always a thing. But then with George Floyd and that whole thing and all the other giant missteps with police in the US, it just became more of a thing. And social media has a tendency to radicalize people. And also there's a lot of money being pumped into the anti-trans lobbying out there, while at the same time the studies just aren't there. Like recently there was the CAST review that was finally published, and people were like, oh, this is the end for gender affirming care for minors, and in the end it didn't succeed in finding evidence that it was harmful. It was just like, it could be better quality evidence, even though it's like the same quality evidence as any other interventions that we use for children. Like the studies just aren't there. It just isn't there. There's so much money pumped into it, and yet the only thing they can do is attack our data while providing none of their own to substantiate their own point. And whatever data they do provide either doesn't say what they think it says, or is completely illegitimate, or is like easily debunkable with like very little effort. It is so obvious, and then the best thing they have to say is just like ideological capture with no paper trail whatsoever. While for SEGM, which was mentioned by someone in the chat before, we do have a paper trail of lobbying. So there's that, you know.
Right. So I just so given in regards to what I was talking about, the cyclic changes, and do you think it's cyclic changes, and society just just being society, humans just humaning, or do you think that there's always been a kind of unease when it comes to trans people?
No, it's just humans just humaning, I guess. We're gonna evolve as we grow. So eventually we're gonna get to a point where, you know, to be honest, I don't know the point we're gonna get to, but eventually you're gonna get to a point where people are living their best lives online, and who cares about real life anyway? Who cares? Because I'm living in my perfect simulation, and I love it, and I can just live
So
there and feel the
That's where the
same
pods come where you're eating
feel the
bugs.
same experiences as I feel in real life. So what's the
so
difference? Who
we're
cares?
so we
You know,
are
who cares?
moving. So what Given is saying is we are
I
moving ever closer and closer to Wall-E.
Imagine, imagine you can live in your own VR reality where you can do what you want, like play, and you don't have to listen to nobody. You can just live your best life. Oh, people are gonna be loving it. They can just do what they want.
I'm
Oh,
not
bro,
What if
sure if
we're living in a
I'm
VR?
honestly not sure if I would want that because it would be fake.
That's what the
it would be what?
Matrix. That's why there was 6 different Matrixes, or maybe 7 even.
It is kind of
Different.
like the blue pill and the red pill stuff, like not how it's now being used in like the
Oh
incel movement, but
gosh.
like
Oh
the
gosh. I'm not
original
gonna.
the
I'm not
original,
gonna
like
lie.
would you want to keep living this life or would you want to
Yeah.
like know that you're in the matrix?
But look at how many people
And
are enjoying video games. Like the people who play video games is just rising and rising and rising. People are enjoying.
yeah, but being in a video game is not the same as like actually like full-time virtual reality life.
No, but
I
eventually
would
when it
give
gets to the
anything
point
to
where
be a
it's like,
footballer.
And
I would give
also
anything to
you'd
jump in
you'd
a photo
also
well and be a
see that
footballer.
there you go. Like it's gonna
anyway, like
imagine
having that
GTA
experience is fun, but like
29.
living your entire life, I just
Imagine GTA 29. Like you just live, you can live a life in this world and like do whatever you want to do. You can become
Man
like
grabs a
a
tank. Man
bro.
gets
Like
five
imagine
star
you can be a
rating, steals a
billionaire.
tank and
You can
runs.
you can go on
I get so
holiday in any
bored.
destination. Like you can feel the wind on your face, but you're not really there. But it feels real. So who cares? Like bro, come on.
Well,
Anyway,
Really? Oh, it's gonna
let
to
be
me.
get back to
like
what we were
remember
talking
that
about,
movie, Ready Player One?
I haven't
Beautiful,
seen it,
I
but
beautiful,
haven't seen either.
beautiful.
I
But
haven't
yeah,
seen it. But
yeah,
what I
Nero.
want to say is I think I am personally scared for trans rights right now because, as I said, there is a lot of money going on, and there's a lot of paid shills that we can actually track are being paid shills, and not just they're being paid by someone, but also like we have like paper trails of them being like, hey, we should be pushing this narrative. Do we have data? No, but push it nonetheless. Like we have that kind of paper trail, etc. Like there's so much transphobic rhetoric out there. There's so much dog whistling, and there's so many myths. Like at the beginning of this episode, we already had so many myths flying around here. It was almost like the Greeks would be proud of our mythology, but I am legitimately scared. I legitimately see so many human rights violations in this area. I see we have so far to go, but I'm also hopeful
Bro.
because I also see so many people passionately fighting the fight, bringing the evidence, bringing the studies, standing up for people who are not them. Because I am fighting for the rights of trans people. I'm cisgender. It doesn't affect me personally, but I care about fellow humans, and no rights for any minority were ever won without the support of the majority. Because, like, I wouldn't have had the right to vote if there were zero men that wanted women to have the vote, because women didn't have the power to give themselves the vote. Like, we needed the support of men.
a lot
And
of women didn't even want to have
similarly, trans people need
no,
the
Talk to
support of
rap
cis
femmes.
people.
Meryl,
you
please,
had
if you
women
ever go to a
against
feminist
women.
convention, go to the rap
No,
fem
stop.
section and let them know this so that they can come back to reality. Sorry, go on. I just wanted to get that out. I'm sorry. But no, you said
Right, but
I
similarly, it's
agree
also
with everything
important
you
for
said.
us cis people to not to transition, to stand up for trans people,
Pressure.
combat the
We stand
misinformation.
up for all people.
Yes, and that includes like this is like
I know.
Black Lives
I
Matter.
heard
Oh,
it.
all lives matter.
Yeah.
They do. They do.
I
Okay.
heard it.
They
I
do. They
heard
do.
it. I heard
They
it.
do.
I heard
They do.
it. No, she is right. She is
Like
right.
we
All lives
know
matter.
when we say Black Lives Matter, that doesn't mean that other lives don't matter. That means that they need some attention because there's inequality going on.
Right. So I just wanna Meryl, everything that you said, look,
Keep fighting the good fight. Trans
yeah.
rights are human rights.
Keep fighting good fight, transfer of human rights. And also we will do more and more streams like this, when there is a topic relevant to the discussion and there's something to actually tackle. Like I don't think you know how I feel every episode. I don't think that we that, but I hope that we have given some kind of food for thought, because but I would have loved to get into the weeds more of like be a bit more methodical to like bust the myths. But maybe we need a separate episode, a targeted episode where we just look at the myths, or let me just to be fair, play devil's advocate, the alleged myths, and then we go through them one by one each time, busting it. So maybe we do need an episode like that, where it's so that we can kind of
We're turning into
the correct
Mythbusters.
idea. Right. So before we close out, I just want to go to the chat real quick. Lee Foster says people are very protective of their spaces. Going back to their spaces argument, and New York City gays detest straight people coming to our bars, which I think is mad. To be honest, this is probably exclusive to New
See?
York. I don't think there's the same sentiment over here in the UK. In fact, the gay club that's actually here, I always see posters saying everyone is welcome. That like they actually advertise it.
But yeah,
They actually advertise
UK
it
is
because
UK is doing things right.
right, yeah. So it's one of those ones. So going in, let me just find the next chat. Amanda says, I find it a bit amusing that the concerns are that the guys are mentioning right now are concerns women often deal with in public. That's actually funny. I love Amanda for that comment. Yes, that's true. I mean, oh my gosh, a woman walking into a bathroom, creepy.
Creeps.
Creeps.
Creepers.
So Amanda says, one beef I have with this stream, could you pick a time when it isn't distracting me from work? No, we want you to beef with this stream. We had to beef. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we always do it every day at 7 UK time. So it'll be 8 or 9 some in different parts of Europe, and definitely 1 o'clock in the US. So unfortunately, there's no other time that we could pick. Most of us finish work around 5 or 6, and this is the only time that we can meet before we go off and rest for the night. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed. But yeah, this is one time. But I do appreciate your contributions, Amanda. Great questions that you have. I appreciate the chat for at least being civil and not hurling insults at each other, because I've seen a lot of it could have gone so many different ways. So Non de Plume says the prefixes cis and trans are from Latin, the side of and the other side of, respectively. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Everything
Cis-
is Latin. We're just
but I
we're
didn't
just
know
culture
this is what it
vultures.
meant. I didn't know this is what it meant. So Meryl, in response to, I'm guessing is the cis and the trans Latin argument.
Yeah, I actually
point.
studied Latin. I have a university degree in it. Nothing about it is a slur.
I know, but I don't think she was saying it was a slur. But
Oh, she's literally saying it's a slur. Like not non de Plume, but the other
Oh, okay,
figure.
What
Yeah,
constitutes a
because
slur?
I know nom. Nom is not like that. I don't. Nom is
A
not like
slur
that.
is a pejorative term that is used derogatorily primarily and usually only, that has no neutral, non-dehumanizing alternative, none of which is true for cis. And also, do you really think that like all human rights organizations, all medical organizations, all psychiatric organizations are just slurring everyone? Get a life. Get
Well,
some
I
real
mean,
problems, please.
I mean, I think we touched on it a little bit, but I will have a problem with it if I'm like no, like anyway. I
Subjective.
don't want to. This is the end, but we talked about it on the previous stream. You kind of have to go watch that near the end of that stream where we were talking about if someone calls me cis, and I'm like, and then we compare it to black, etc. You know, another time we will bring that up and then really and then really talk about it. But we are, I have to close off pretty soon, so. No insult. Look, Nana, I like I haven't followed the chat religiously. I think Meryl did say that I haven't seen insults like in terms of swear words, etc. That's what I mean. So if there have been, you know, I hope that I need to get a mod so that you know the mods can actually lay because I don't want that to be the space here. I want people to be civil. So maybe I do need to get a mod that would literally kick people out for doing things like that. So, but I hope there haven't been insults like you know, people saying slurs at you, etc. You know, I hope that hasn't been the case.
Yo,
But
this
like,
is interesting, man.
okay, my government is being thrown in here. Oh gosh, Tessa, look, I'm not following the chat. I like the bit that I did catch. I thought it was just people having civil disagreements. Okay, all right. I'll get a mod. I'll get a mod. Amanda says if the conversation hadn't been civil, I wouldn't have stuck around. I appreciate that people are remaining fairly and respectful, even if disagreeing. That's what I thought I saw. That's what I thought I saw. I thought I saw people were like, you know, in one way or the other remain respectful. Anyway. I'm going to have to I'm going to I'm going to have to
Bro,
I'm going to
what's
have to end it
happening in
there,
this
guys.
chat,
Thank you so
man?
much. Thank you so much, Given and Meryl for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button if you're watching on the replay crew. Chat once again. You know, Nana, thank you for so much for tuning in. The communism guy. I forgot your full name because it's quite long, but thank you for choosing in. Tessa, Amanda, thank you everyone for tuning in. Jennifer Thetford, thank you for tuning in. Hey B as well, thank you for tuning in. And anyway, if I forgot your name, you know, I am extra. You know, I'm sorry, and I appreciate you being here. Nom de Plume as well. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing a bit about your life. But yeah, I appreciate everyone, and we'll be back on the 28th of what month are we in? May. Okay, cool. All right,
Right.
we're back on the 28th of May. I forgot for a minute. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, but we'll be back on the 28th of May. Keep an eye out on the community tab section where I am going to be, releasing what topic that we'll be covering for that time. And yeah, like once again, Meryl, Given, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Yeah, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this stream, and I really appreciate how you broke things down, Meryl. That's the one thing I do appreciate about you. You are very, I would say, definitely consistent. Because I didn't think that you would support no spaces whatsoever, but definitely you do care for your words, and I do appreciate that. Given?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that like one of the something only spaces might be more or less harmful than the other. But if I'm being fair and honest, I'd have to say either rights for everyone or rights for no one.
Yeah.
Take them away. We don't need them.
Yeah, no, I agree. We definitely don't need spaces. I never liked them from the start. What's wrong with people relating to each other?
I think if you want spaces, have them in your house. Have them in your own house. There you go.
Yeah, throw a party.
Invite people to your house. You want to invite to your house? Have them in your house. There you go.
But yeah, we will leave it there, ladies and gentlefish. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Given, I appreciate your input today. Like always, always welcome per usual. And Meryl, have a great evening. And everyone else, have a great evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care.